My husband Sumubai got promoted with military relocation benefits, so he bought 3 train tickets, one for himself, one for his cousin Lu Xiaoya, and one for her child, Qingqing. I'll come back for you once my mother's leg heals. In my past life, Sumubai fed me the same line, taking Lu Xiaoya and her kid first while leaving me behind to care for his injured mother. Just days after Sumubai left with Lu Xiaoya and her child, I was caught in bed with the village bachelor Lu Laosan by Granny Wu Hohot and her posse. Despite her injured leg, branded as an adulteress and publicly shamed, I mustered my last ounce of dignity to seek Sumubai's help in clearing my name. Instead, I found him accompanying Lu Xiaoya to her prenatal checkup. Turned out Sumubai had secretly married Lu Xiaoya and fathered her child behind my back. In utter despair, I chose the path of no return, starting over. I nodded calmly upon hearing those familiar words. Don't worry, I'll take good care of your mother. Within 3 days of Sumubai's departure, I urgently telegraphed, "Mother critically ill, return immediately." Sumubai rushed back upon receiving the tragic news. Utterly stunned to see Wu Hohot with both legs amputated, he tentatively suggested, "Qingqing, maybe you could stay in the countryside to look after my mother for now, until she," with my packed luggage on my back, I calmly told him. "Blood takes care of blood. As an outsider, I have neither the duty nor obligation to be your family's live-in maid." When Sumubai's promotion transfer came through, I, his wife, was the last to know. Auntie Qin from next door held my hand and said, "Qingqing, you'll be joining the army in a few days. Your hard times are finally over. After you're stationed, do come back to visit me when you can. Don't you dare forget about me." I stayed silent. Sumubai claimed this trip home was just a month-long family visit, but he'd been keeping his transfer orders from me the whole time. Had Auntie Qin not spilled the beans first, he wouldn't have planned to tell me at all. In my past life, I immediately confronted Sumubai after hearing about this from Sister Qin. Reluctantly, he confessed, "Qingqing, Xiaoya and her child are struggling. She needs stable work to support them. I plan to take them with me first, then bring you along next time." Furious, I retorted, "How dare you? I'm your wife. What will people think when you show up with Lu Xiaoya and her child? How will you explain your relationship with her?" Cornered by my questions, Sumubai flushed with anger. "This is charity work. As a military wife, shouldn't you support my decisions? But why should I? When I married him, he was dirt poor. Just 2 rundown thatched huts and a frail mother in a bare house. Back then, no one in the village would marry him. They all looked down on his poverty and saw his mother Wu Hohot as a toxic, lazy shrew who'd be nothing but dead weight. I was the one who threw caution to the wind and married him. While Sumubai couldn't lift a finger to help from his military post, I toiled day in and day out under the scorching sun, working my fingers to the bone to earn work points and keep this household afloat. As our fortunes gradually improved with his promotion, the number of dependents he had to support grew as well. Out of the blue, he brought home Lu Xiaoya and her child, claiming they were distant cousins who'd lost their husband and had no one left. Back then I was naive enough to believe Sumubai was some saintly do-gooder performing charity. Even after his promotion, he still refused to send me his salary to support our household, while Lu Xiaoya lived noticeably better than anyone else in the village. It wasn't until people started hinting that Sumubai was giving his entire paycheck to Lu Xiaoya and her child that the penny finally dropped. That's why in my past life, when Sumubai proposed taking Lu Xiaoya and her son with him to the military base, I refused. Sumubai argued with me and stormed off in a huff. The very next evening, his mother Wu Hohot accidentally fell and injured her leg, leaving her bedridden. Sumubai came to me earnestly, saying, "Mom can't be left alone with her injured leg now. Qingqing, please bear the burden of staying home to care for her. I'll come get you once she recovers." In my past life, I had no choice but to stay and care for the injured Wu Hohot. I could only watch helplessly as Sumubai left with Lu Xiaoya and her child, carrying all their belongings. I gave Wu Hohot all the finest ingredients from our home to help her leg heal faster, back when supplies were scarce. I'd toil daily, catching fish in the river and hunting pheasants or rabbits in the mountains, just to prepare nourishing meals for her. When Wu Hohot was bedridden, I personally attended to all her toileting needs. Worried she might develop bedsores from immobility, I'd heat water after finishing chores to give her sponge baths. I changed the bedsheets religiously every few days. Honestly, I treat Wu Hohot 100 times better than my own mother, but how does she repay me? It's been a while since Sumubai left with Lu Xiaoya, yet Wu Hohot's leg injury shows no sign of improvement. She's still bedridden, though that doesn't stop her from eating and drinking to her heart's content. In desperation, I sought help from a renowned folk healer. only to land myself in trouble that very night. My bedridden wife Uhohot, who'd been paralyzed and immobile, led a crowd to catch me in bed with the village bachelor, Old Lu III. The scandal ruined my reputation overnight. I became the target of the villagers' scorn and abuse. Even Uhohot, whose legs miraculously recovered, would curse or beat me daily, demanding I leave immediately. Her house wouldn't tolerate a shameless adulteress like me. No one would listen to my pleas of innocence. Back then I felt wronged and helpless, yet clung to a sliver of hope. After all these years of devotion to this family, Sumubai knows exactly what kind of person I am. That Lu Laosan is 30 years my senior, old, repulsive and disgusting. I'd have to be blind to get involved with such filth. I was certain Sumubai would stand by me and believe in me. He would surely sympathize with my plight and give me a proper explanation. Clinging to that single hope, I rushed overnight to the military base to find Sumubai. During the journey, I considered countless possibilities, except that he could betray me. Then I saw Sumubai accompanying Lu Xiaoya, visibly pregnant, for her prenatal checkup, and learned the baby was already 5 months along. My world collapsed. In a fit of blind rage, I made a desperate scene demanding justice from the military superiors. Then Sumubai produced his marriage certificate with Lu Xiaoya. They were the lawfully wedded couple all along. After slaving away in Su's household for 6 years, I turned out to be nothing but an unrelated outsider. The cruel truth was unbearable, yet impossible to deny, helpless and penniless. I was at a complete loss about what to do. In utter despair, my exhausted body was struck down by a speeding car on the street, never to wake again. Still dazed from my rebirth, Sister Chin next door repeated the exact same words she'd said in my previous life. Words failed me as I hungrily took in my surroundings. How wonderful, I'm back again. Pushing open the courtyard gate, Sumubai was lifting Lu Xiaoya's child high in the air. The child giggled with delight as his strong hands tossed them upward again and again, catching them each time. Lu Xiaoya stood nearby watching them with a tender smile, immediately fetching a handkerchief to wipe the sweat from Sumubai's forehead when she noticed it. Their eyes met with such tenderness, their radiant smiles sweeter than honey. After 6 years of marriage to Sumubai, I'd only ever known his cold indifference. Never imagined his smile could be this gentle, this breathtaking. At the sound of the door, both turned to look at me. Lu Xiaoya didn't even pause while wiping sweat from Sumubai's brow, treating me like some intruder disrupting their intimacy. Sumubai stopped tossing Lu Xiaoya's son in the air and looked at me somewhat awkwardly. The giggling child, suddenly deprived of his fun game, cried out, "Daddy, throw me again, I want to play more." In their past life, Lu Xiaoya's child would also frequently call Sumubai daddy. Sumubai explained that the fatherless child didn't understand what daddy meant and was just babbling due to his young age. How could I have been so stupid in my past life to fall for such a lame excuse from him? I let out a cold laugh. Hearing it, Sumubai's face flashed with panic as he immediately put down the child in his arms and began explaining to me. "Dashu doesn't understand what daddy means. He's just playing around. Don't take it seriously." I ignored Sumubai, my icy gaze fixed on Lu Xiaoya, who was wiping sweat from his brow. If the child doesn't know better, shouldn't his mother? Lu Xiaoya was utterly mortified by my questioning. Too ashamed to respond, she just gave Sumubai a pitiful look. "Are you mad, Ching? I'm so sorry, it's all my fault." "What apology? You did nothing wrong. Since when does an adult have the right to pick on a child?" This wasn't the first time Sumubai defended Lu Xiaoya. I used to swallow my pride, but not this time. "Sumubai, would you still think it's normal if someone else's child called me mom?" Sumubai was left speechless, with no retort. At that moment, Wu Hohot rushed out to mediate, glaring at me. "Weren't you going to buy meat? Why did you come back empty-handed?" I calmly uttered 2 words, "No money." In my past life, I ran around like crazy when Sumubai returned, spending every penny I had to buy him meat and delicacies, terrified of shortchanging him. God, I was such a hopeless fool in my previous life. Out of 5 people in this household, I'm the only one looking pale, skinny and malnourished. If Sumubai had even an ounce of affection for me, he wouldn't have watched me waste away to this ghostly state. I deserved being used by that family in my past life, but it won't happen again in this lifetime. I won't let those heartless bastards take advantage of me ever again. When I said I had no money, Wu Hohot became even more displeased. "I saw you leave with money myself. Where is it now?" "I got robbed." "You're so useless. Why does everyone pick on you?" "Just because you're an easy target." "Exactly. I've got pushover written all over my face, haven't I? That's why people walk all over me." Wu Hohot was stunned speechless. She'd grown so accustomed to bullying me. I'd always just smiled and taken it, that my retort caught her completely off guard, cornered by my retort. Wu Hohat flushed with rage, planting her hands on her hips as she glared at me. Useless good for nothing. Why aren't you making dinner? Trying to starve us all? I stared coldly back. Are you all invalids? Am I the hired help here? Does the whole household go hungry if I don't cook? You, how dare you? Wu Hohat immediately turned to Su Mubai to tattle. Mubai, look how Gu Qingqing speaks to me right in front of you. You can imagine what I endure when you're not around. Lu Xiaoya quickly stood up to support the tearful Wu Hohat. Auntie, let me handle the cooking. Please don't be upset. Look how considerate Xiaoya is. She's still our guest. Since when do we make guests cook? I scoffed. I've never heard of guests overstaying their welcome for a year and a half. At this point, we're not hosting a guest. We're worshipping an ancestor. My blunt words left the courtyard in stunned silence, while Su Mubai fixed me with an intense stare. Gu Qingqing, what do you mean by this? Don't you realize how outrageous your words are? Apologize right now. An apology? Ha, in your dreams. I ignored Su Mubai and walked up the steps to my room. Behind me, I heard Lu Xiaoya sobbing. Mubai, I shouldn't have come here and caused you trouble. I'll leave right now. Tomorrow I'll take the child and go. I sneered and slammed the door shut, cutting off all the noise outside. I don't have time to trade barbs with these lowlifes right now. I've got more important things to deal with. Su Mubai brought back some money this time. In my past life, I was naive enough to think he struggled alone outside and refused to spend a single penny of his. Now that I know what scum Su Mubai is, I'd be a fool not to use his money. I unpacked Su Mubai's luggage and pocketed all the cash inside, after packing the hand-stitched cloth shoes I'd made for him through sleepless nights. I hurried out the door again. The courtyard was empty. Su Mubai, Lu Xiaoya, and the others had vanished, leaving only murmurs of consolation from the main hall. Humph. I rushed next door to Sister Qin's house with the shoes in hand. Sister, please take these shoes for Brother Qin to wear. Sister Qin gasped. But aren't these the shoes you made for Mubai? What's happened, sister? I suspect Su Mubai is cheating on me with Lu Xiaoya behind my back. I won't let my hard work go to waste on someone like that. Sister Qin sighed when she heard me say that. Qingqing, ever since that Lu Xiaoya arrived, the village gossip has spread far and wide. I thought you'd resigned yourself to enduring this forever. It's not too late to wake up now. What are you planning to do? I'll take it one step at a time, but I won't let that heartless family off easy. Sister, could you do me a favor? I didn't return home until after having dinner at Sister Qin's place. Su Mubai was waiting for me in the room with a dark expression. The moment I stepped in, he demanded, "What's gotten into you today? Are you out of your mind? How could you speak to Xiaoya and her child like that? What did I say wrong? Is she some helpless cripple, living here rent-free for over a year without lifting a finger to cook? Am I your family's unpaid maid?" You, Su Mubai froze, taken aback by my unyielding, razor-sharp tone. After studying me intently, he finally reined in his anger. Qingqing, we need to talk. I knew exactly what was coming. I've got something to say too. I cut in. Let me go first. The money you brought home is all gone to pay debts, and it's still not enough. Figure out how to scrape together a few hundred more for me. What? You used all that money to pay debts? How did we end up with so much debt? You should ask yourself that. Weren't you the one insisting on supporting Lu Xiaoya and her child? They can't tolerate the slightest hardship. Gourmet meals every day, snacks for the kid, seasonal wardrobes for Xiaoya, not to mention your mother demanding lavish treats every other day. Running this household alone, I couldn't possibly earn enough to cover all these expenses. What choice did I have but to borrow? Speaking of which, you've been away for years without sending a single penny home. You must have saved quite a bit by now. Su Mubai was rendered speechless. In our past life, I'd never given him any cause for concern, so he'd taken everything for granted. Now, learning about the mountain of debt, his face darkened with dismay. Couldn't you have been more frugal? Telling me this is pointless. Go say it to your mother and Lu Xiaoya's family. I've been wearing the same coat for 6 years now. Su Mubai fell silent as he stared at my threadbare clothes, patched layer upon layer. After a long pause, he finally spoke. I'll figure out the money situation. Qingqing, I got promoted. I just muttered oh. Seeing my indifferent expression and complete lack of enthusiasm, Su Mubai had no choice but to continue awkwardly. The army granted a dependent assignment slot. Pack your things, you'll be joining me as a military spouse in a few days. Su Mubai's words shocked me. In my past life, this never happened. He'd always specifically requested Lu Xiaoya as his dependent. Why would he change his mind this time around? I didn't trust Su Mubai's sudden change of heart, so I kept my guard up. The following evening, I overheard Wu Hohat's conversation with Su Mubai. Su Mubai said, Gu Qingqing has completely changed these days. The only way I could think of was to pacify her by promising to take her along as a military dependent. Wu Hohat visibly panicked. You're actually taking that useless woman as a camp follower. What about Xiaoya and her child? This is just a temporary measure to keep Gu Qingqing calm. I'm definitely taking Xiaoya with me. She's carrying my child after all. I can't leave mother and child to suffer at home. Wu Hohat immediately agreed. You're absolutely right. Take Xiaoya with you and leave the household to me. I know how to make Gu Qingqing stay. Mom, do you have any good ideas? Fake an injury? Tomorrow I'll claim I hurt my leg in a fall. I've got connections at the hospital who'll help us cover it up. If Gu Qingqing behaves and stays to take care of me, we'll come clean after Xiaoya delivers the baby. But if she causes trouble, don't blame me for what happens next. Mom, what are you planning? Don't you know your own mother? I'll handle Gu Qingqing once and for all, clean, thorough, and permanent. So you and Xiaoya won't have any future worries. Wu Hohat pulled a small pouch from under her pillow and boasted to Su Mubai. This is anesthetic I got from a traveling physician. He said just a pinch could knock out a tiger for a whole day. What a vicious old hag. So she was the mastermind behind setting me up with Lu Laosan in my past life. Since you've shown no mercy, don't blame me for what's coming. For the next 2 days, I secretly observed Wu Hohat, Su Mubai, and Lu Xiaoya's movements. Watching coldly as they picked the spot for the staged accident and pretending not to notice them discussing the details, I feigned ignorance while packing my belongings to join the army. There was so much to prepare it took me days. That evening, as I was organizing my things, Su Mubai walked in. His eyes flickered as he watched me bustling about. All packed, didn't forget anything, almost done. By the way, when are we leaving? The moment I finished speaking, a loud thud came from outside. Followed by Wu Hohat's piercing scream, Su Mubai immediately rushed out, while I trailed behind at a leisurely pace. Wu Hohat lay sprawled in the courtyard, wailing like a stuck pig. Both Su Mubai and Lu Xiaoya rushed past me to support Wu Hohat. Su Mubai cried out with heartfelt concern, Mom, what's wrong? Lu Xiaoya chimed in urgently, Auntie, are you okay? Where does it hurt? Mubai and I will take you to the hospital right now. Wu Hohat wailed incessantly. Unable to form complete sentences between her cries of pain, both Su Mubai and Lu Xiaoya were convinced she was putting on an act. Su even snapped at my sluggish self trailing behind. Gu Qingqing, what are you standing around for? Hurry up and help my mother to the hospital. I rushed forward and shrieked. Blood, so much blood. Su and Lu followed my pointing finger. The relentless flow of blood gushing from Wu Hohat's body left them both stunned. The moment they saw Wu Hohat's blood soaking into the ground, they screamed in unison. Wu Hohat was rushed to the hospital without delay, several miles from the village to the town clinic. With no proper roads, motor vehicles were naturally out of the question. They hauled Wu Hohat on a wooden cart, her screams growing hoarse by the time they reached the hospital. During surgery, doctors discovered her buttocks were riddled with glass shards. The doctor spent a full 3 hours removing hundreds of bone fragments. With this happening, my plans to join the military contingent were obviously ruined. While Wu Hohat lay unconscious in bed, Su Mubai couldn't wait to confront me. Qingqing, my mother broke her leg. The doctor says it'll take months to heal. Bones and tendons need 100 days to mend. Someone must stay home to care for her. I understand. I said considerately, don't worry, I'll stay and take good care of your mother. Qingqing, you're such a blessing. I'll be counting on you to look after Mom from now on. It's no trouble at all. It's my duty, but caring for a bedridden elderly does take energy, so I might not be able to handle other chores as much. About your salary, I'll make sure to send money home regularly. Su Mubai promised immediately. I don't want empty promises. You'd better figure out how to borrow money from someone else first. Leave some for me to take care of your mother. Oh. And don't forget about paying back those debts. They've been overdue for ages. We can't keep dragging this out. Seeing that I agreed to stay and care for his mother, Su Mubai responded eagerly, don't worry, leave it all to me. I'll go borrow the money right away. True to his word, Su Mubai managed to borrow 1,000 yuan and handed it to me in less than a day. When handing over the money, he feigned hesitation and said, Qingqing, this military-dependent quota has a time limit. If I don't take you, it'll go to waste. What I mean is, Xiaoya has been struggling with the child. Why don't we let her and the kid come with me this time? Once she gets a job, she won't trouble us anymore. No problem, I agreed readily. It wouldn't inconvenience me for long anyway. Su Mubai taking Lu Xiaoya away actually made things easier for me. My thoughtfulness moved Su Mubai so much he tried to hug me, but I dodged it. Go tell Lu Xiaoya first, have her pack her bags immediately. Su Mubai left in high spirits, not even bothering about his mother who was in a sorry state. On the third morning, Su Mubai and Lu Xiaoya left carrying bundles of belongings, just like in their past life. I personally saw them off at the station, solemnly reminding Su Mubai as he boarded, "Don't worry about home, I'll handle everything. I won't disturb your work unless it's absolutely necessary." After seeing Su Mubai and Lu Xiaoya off, I turned and headed straight to the village office to get our marriage certificate notarized by the village chief. Then I ambled home to find Wu Hohat already discharged from hospital, lying in bed demanding I prepare her meal. Naturally I obliged her request, cooking Wu Hohat an overflowing bowl of noodles with 2 perfectly poached eggs. The egg noodles contained special ingredients Wu had hidden under her pillow, potent enough to knock out a tiger. Wu Hohat happily dozed off after eating her egg noodles, while I rushed outside screaming, "Help, my mother-in-law has collapsed." Hearing my desperate cries, neighbors quickly came to investigate. Everyone gasped at Wu Hohat's condition. Feigning concern, I said, "She was perfectly fine just now. I made her egg noodles myself, and when I returned after cleaning up, she was like this." Someone shook Wu Hohat and called her name repeatedly, but she remained completely unresponsive, baffled. The neighbors muttered, "Could this be some kind of evil possession, really?" I frantically rummaged through the bed and accidentally pulled out the bag Wu Hohat had hidden under the pillow. "What's this?" Everyone stared at the bag. Someone opened it and sniffed. "Weird smell. What's inside this thing?" The person next to them also took a whiff but couldn't figure it out either. At that moment, everyone who smelled the contents of the bag collapsed to the ground with a thud. They showed the same unconscious symptoms as Wu Hohat. Panic ensued. People scrambled to call for help while others rushed the victims to the hospital. Everyone thought it was eerie, convinced some evil spirit in the bag was behind it. "I don't see it that way. We can't delay this. She needs medical attention immediately." As I spoke, I found a handcart and loaded Wu Hohat onto it before pulling her out the door. The onlookers who had gathered grew terrified when they saw the object under Wu Hohat's pillow knock 2 people unconscious. No one dared to help me. They all believed something supernatural was at work. That's exactly the effect I wanted, hauling the cart while wailing at the top of my lungs. When we reached a steep section with no one around, I stopped and pushed the cart downhill. I watched Wu Hohat tumble off the cart and plunge into the ditch below. I jumped down after her, picked up a rock, and smashed it hard into Wu Hohat's leg as she lay unconscious. Didn't Wu Hohat love faking a limp? Then I'll make it real for her. She'll never leave that bed again. Wu Hohat's legs were a mangled mess, barely attached by shreds of flesh. I tore at my hair, smeared her blood on myself, and wailed my way up the ravine screaming for help. Villagers from the nearby settlement heard my cries for help and rushed over to assist me in getting Wu Hohat to the hospital. Wu Hohat had broken both legs in the ravine fall, and the doctors made the immediate decision to amputate. I kept vigil outside the operating room all night, and when Wu Hohat was wheeled out legless, I broke down in tears before heading to the post office to send a telegram, "Mother critically ill, return immediately." While sending the telegram, I also mailed a pre-written whistleblower letter to the military leadership. Wu Hohat woke on the 3rd morning, her lips parched as she croaked. "Water." No one acknowledged her plea. Wu Hohat struggled to sit up, but found her lower body unresponsive. She felt like something fundamental was missing. She yanked the blanket aside and looked at her legs. The sight of 2 empty trouser legs made Wu Hohat scream in horror. I pushed the door open and entered amidst her piercing screams. "Awake, my legs, where are my legs? Gu Ching Ching, tell me, where are my legs? Didn't your leg break long ago? Have you forgotten?" I reminded her. "No. My legs were fine, they were perfectly fine. How could they just disappear overnight?" "Mom, are you confused? Your leg was broken long ago, when Mubai was still home. Everyone knows that." "No, I'm not," Wu Hohat said through pain and frustration. "I had both legs before, now they're gone." "Oh, you're asking why you lost both your legs?" I picked up Wu Hohat's thread. "It's a long story. That day when you were bedridden and starving, I made you egg noodles. After eating them, you fell unconscious. Scared out of my wits, I rushed you to the hospital on a flatbed cart. Then I slipped and fell into a ditch. Your already injured legs happened to smash against the rocks. The doctors said amputation was the only way to save your life. So that's how you lost your legs." "You, what did you say?" "You, what about me? Wondering why I'm unharmed. I find it strange too. Maybe all my good deeds paid off. Divine protection. You see." I watched Wu Hohat's priceless expression with amusement before slowly speaking. Mom, why have you been so unlucky lately? First you broke your leg in the yard, then got a butt full of glass shards. Did you do something terrible to offend the heavens? I overheard some patients' relatives saying cases like yours are always karmic retribution for wrongdoing. Wu Hohat was fuming. That's bullshit. I smiled. You've every right to be angry. Mom, I don't believe in karma either, only coincidences. You know, all that glass in your butt was just a coincidence. Actually, I paused before speaking slowly. I broke some glass bottles that day and swept the shards over there without cleaning them up. Never thought you'd be so unlucky as to fall right onto those exact fragments I left. What a terrible twist of fate. Wu Hohat pointed a trembling finger at me, trying to speak. But before she could get the words out, she passed out from sheer shock. Sumubai arrived 2 days later. Covered in dust from his hurried journey, staring at Wu Hohat lying legless in the hospital bed, Sumubai was utterly dumbstruck. How could this happen? How could this happen? Wu Hohat saw Sumubai's return as if spotting a savior. Son, it's all her doing, that vicious woman's scheme. She's the one who cost me my leg. Mom, what exactly are you implying? Why on earth would I want to harm you? I protested loudly in self-defense. The whole village has seen how I've treated you, haven't they? Everyone can testify what kind of life I've lived these 6 years and how much I've sacrificed for this family. You can't just slander me because you accidentally broke your own leg. Sumubai also eyed Wu Hohat suspiciously as she shrieked. She admitted it. Said she deliberately put broken glass there to make me fall. Sumubai's expression darkened. Is this true? Yes, I nodded, seeing my straightforward admission. Wu Hohat pointed at me furiously. That vicious woman tried to kill me with broken glass and broke my leg. She wants me dead. Mubai, call the police right now. Have them arrest her. I'll make sure she rots in jail. Mom, calm down. I'll handle calling the police. But before they get here, there's something I need to ask you. I pulled something from my pocket and placed it before Wu Hohat. Mom, I found this under your pillow. What is it? Do you know? Wu Hohat's face paled. No, I don't know. I asked the doctor, and he said this seems to be some kind of anesthetic. Just inhaling it can knock you unconscious. Mom, why would you keep this under your pillow? Wu Hohat couldn't respond, and Sumubai's face darkened. I pressed further. If you hadn't put this under your pillow, you wouldn't have passed out. I wouldn't have panicked and taken you to the doctor. And we wouldn't have fallen into that ditch, which led to your leg being so badly broken it had to be amputated. This thing ruined you. I sighed. You're not the only victim. Others in the village slept for ages after smelling it too. They think it's some kind of dark magic and suspect you're behind it. They're about to call the police. That's why I got Mubai to come home. Now he's here, and I brought the stuff. Just say the word, and I'll report it for you. Neither Wu Hohat dared to report to the police, nor did Sumubai, though Wu Hohat kept nagging to Sumubai that I was the one who harmed her. But Sumubai didn't believe it. Perhaps part of him wanted to, yet he couldn't bring himself to. After all, I loved him so deeply. There's nothing I wouldn't do for him. How could I possibly harm his mother? What good would it do me to harm his mother? Sumubai's current concern is how Wu Hohat, now without legs, will survive in the future. He only lasted a few days caring for Wu Hohat in the hospital before he couldn't take it anymore. After all, a bedridden patient needs help with everything. With Sumubai as her biological son present, there's naturally nothing left for an outsider like me to do. I claimed to be too ill to get out of bed and dumped all the dirty work of tending to bodily needs on Sumubai. Sumubai wanted to fulfill his filial duties, but dealing with human waste was more than most could stomach. Of course Sumubai loved Wu Hohat. After all, she was his mother, yet now he found her utterly repulsive. They say no child remains dutiful by a long-sick parent's bedside. He couldn't bear changing Wu Hohat's bedpans. He needed an old servant to tend to her without complaint for life. His first thought was me. Sumubai approached me. Ching-ching, I'm joining the military soon. Really, who'll care for your mother then? I countered. With my mother in this state, I'm truly at my wit's end. I'm afraid I'll have to ask you to bear with this. He was waiting for me to respond with my usual understanding, saying something like, it's no trouble at all. This is what I should do. I'll take good care of your mother so you can focus on work. Sumubai was certain I'd give him that understanding response, offering my support as always. But I just kept my head down, packing my belongings. After 6 years of marriage to Sumubai, my personal possessions were pitifully few. There were only 3 or 4 patched garments, nothing else to speak of. I folded and unfolded the clothes right in front of Sumubai. Why should I bother taking these rags with me? I've got money to buy new clothes now, so I'm leaving these old ones behind. I threw the old clothes on the ground right in front of Sumubai. Sumubai was startled. He'd been anxiously waiting for my response. Seeing me toss the clothes, he panicked. Thinking I was mad at him, he immediately started making empty promises. After I join the military, I'll send you my entire paycheck and only keep a small amount for myself. When my mother grows old, you can come live with me on base, ching ching. I'll be forever grateful and cherish you all my life. Hearing Sumubai's tender words, I lifted my head. Really, do you swear? I swear. May I die a terrible death if I ever lie to you. Sumubai reached for my hand while swearing an oath, but I dodged his grasp. Then I'll be waiting to see you meet a terrible end. What did you say? Sumubai stared at me in shock. Didn't you swear you'd die horribly if you ever deceived me? Sumubai, don't pretend you don't know what's going on between you and Lu Xiaoya. There's nothing between Lu Xiaoya and me. I just pity her. Oh really? Then tell me, who's the father of Lu Xiaoya's baby? Sumubai fell silent. I smiled sweetly. I heard Lu Xiaoya is your legally wedded wife. In that case, why don't you ask her to come take care of your mother? What do you need me for? We're practically strangers, aren't we? No, that's not how it is. Sumubai tried to explain, but words failed him. Just as Lu Xiaoya returned with their son, exhaustion written all over her face, she burst into tears while dragging her son Dashu by the hand through the door. Mubai, the military unit received a whistleblower letter. They've deported me and Dashu back here. Sumubai stared at Lu Xiaoya in shock. What whistleblower letter? I don't know either. They just kicked us out of the barracks. They won't let me stay there anymore, and said you'll be disciplined soon too. Hearing this news, I let out a gleeful laugh. Serves them right. Sumubai turned at the sound of my laughter. I stood up. I sent that anonymous report. I know about your affair with Lu Xiaoya, so I wrote to the military authorities. I even got the village secretary to provide documentation proving our relationship. You, how dare you? Sumubai trembled with rage. I laughed heartily at his ashen face. Since you're so fond of Lu Xiaoya, Sumubai, so eager for her to bear your child, I'll gladly step aside. Then I turned to Lu Xiaoya. You'll have your hands full with Wu Hohot now. TSK, quite the workload, carrying a baby while nursing a legless cripple in bed. Disgusting. Really, what do you mean? Who's paralyzed? Wu Hohot is paralyzed. How's that possible? Wasn't she faking it? Lu Xiaoya blurted out. I chuckled. She wasn't faking, she really lost her legs. Lu Xiaoya wore an expression too complex for words, while I clapped my hands in delight. Congratulations to you and Sumubai for finally getting legally married. Thanks for taking on Su's whole family burden. Just a heads up, he got fired and has no income now, so don't expect any fancy living. Your life's gonna be tough, especially since Su's drowning in debt. I'd forced Sumubai to take loans, a trap I set long ago. He'd already blown all his money on Lu Xiaoya. Plus Wu Hohot's fake amputation scam. Serves him right. Once jobless Sumubai returns to the countryside, he'll learn earning money is like climbing to heaven. God knows when he'll ever pay back that mountain of debt. But the real kicker is they'll have to care for Wu Hohot bedridden and incontinent. My words drained the color from Lu Xiaoya and Sumubai's faces. Chuckling to myself, I didn't turn back until reaching the doorway. Oh, one more thing you should know. Ever wonder why I couldn't conceive in 6 years of marriage? Sumubai reflexively asked. Why? Because you're sterile. Don't tell me you actually think Lu Xiaoya's baby is yours. I burst into raucous laughter. Of course not. That child belongs to the village good-for-nothing Ma Shower. I saw them sneaking into the mountain cave together with my own eyes. With that, I walked away laughing hysterically. Truth be told, I've no idea if there's any connection between Lu Xiaoya's baby and that layabout Ma Shower. But seeing them disappear into that cave together, that part's absolutely true. Under these circumstances, I won't hold back. When dealing with enemies, you hit them where it hurts most. With the money I reclaimed from Sumubai, I headed south to begin my grueling struggle for survival. My days of wandering out in the world were bittersweet. I'm someone who can endure hardship and isn't afraid of hard work. When the winds of reform and opening up swept across the nation, I was among the first to ride the wave of prosperity. My clothing business flourished beyond expectations. I successfully leased over a dozen storefronts, bought a spacious house, drove a nice car, and married a wonderful man. Time flew by in a blink, and suddenly my child was already 12 years old. I hosted my son's 12th birthday at an upscale restaurant in Shenzhen. Never expected to run into an old acquaintance here. Lu Xiaoya, now aged beyond recognition, was working as a cleaner while I strutted down the hallway in stilettos with my perfectly curled waves. As Lu Xiaoya looked up from vacuuming the carpet, our eyes locked, her face froze in shock. You, Gu Qingqing became rich. How's that even possible? I stared indifferently at Lu Xiaoya, her back hunched and hair streaked with white. Her eyes burned with hatred as she spat. Found yourself a sugar daddy, haven't you? Look at how you're dressed. Must be selling yourself. No other way you'd have this kind of money. Not everyone's as pathetic as you. I sneered. I can survive without men. But you, this is what you've become without one. This is all your fault. If not for you, Sumubai and I would have settled down in the military by now, living well. You vicious, shameless bitch. You crippled Wu Hohot, ruined Sumubai's career, and planted thorns in his heart. Lu Xiaoya screamed at me furiously. This is all your fault. Because of your nonsense. Sumubai suspects the child in my belly isn't his. He kept saying my baby had eyes like Ma Shower. He always doubted my relationship with Ma Shower. So when he got drunk, he dropped my child to its death. I simply said, "Oh, that's unfortunate. How can you be so heartless? Do you have any idea what I've been through?" Beating and cursing me was his daily routine. He forced me to wait hand and foot on that wretched old hag Wu Hohot, cleaning her piss and shit. The slightest complaint from me would earn me a beating. Lu Xiaoya wiped her tears. He said if you could do these things, why couldn't I? When he was with you, he secretly fooled around with me behind your back. But after you left, he couldn't stop talking about how wonderful you were. So why don't you just leave him? Can't survive without a man. I sneered. You think I don't want to? I have children. I can't just walk away like you. Lu Xiaoya roared. This is all your fault. That bastard Sumubai killed one of my children and crippled the other. When they executed him, he left me with this godforsaken mess. Really, how tragic for you. I mocked with a cold laugh, devoid of any sympathy. I'm a mother. I could never abandon my child. Raising a disabled kid means no man would ever accept me. All these years I've been struggling just to put food on the table. Seeing me suffer like this must bring you such joy, doesn't it? I answered with brutal honesty. Absolutely thrilled. May your misery last forever, this lifetime and every one after. I walked away in my stilettos without looking back. Lu Xiaoya's enraged screams chasing after me. Pathetic tantrums. Nothing to fear. Story 2. The earthquake struck. I was left paralyzed from the neck down after saving my boyfriend Lu Zhou. Yet he turned around and married my hypocritical stepsister. As they walked down the aisle together, I was being tortured to death by a sadistic caretaker. When I opened my eyes again, I'd been reborn on the day of the earthquake. Watching Lu Zhou desperately begging for my help, I turned away without hesitation, dropped dead. You scumbag. 1. Xia Xia, help me. Lu Zhou stood before me, his feet trapped beneath the boulders. I snapped back to reality as the crumbling ruins and relentless collapse sounds around me made one thing clear. I'd been reborn. Reborn at the very beginning of this nightmare, in my past life. To save Lu Zhou, I recklessly charged back into the collapsing ruins. When the ceiling came crashing down, I shielded him with my own body. That was the outcome. I was crushed alive and left permanently paralyzed from the neck down. Yet Lu Zhou escaped with only minor injuries. Aftermath. He knelt by my hospital bed, swearing to stay by my side forever. Then he turned around and married my adopted sister. My parents gradually gave up on their disabled daughter too, pouring all their hopes and affection into their adopted child, leaving me alone to be tormented by caretakers until death. Xia Xia, save me please. Lu Zhou's desperate screams continued to echo. Meanwhile, the ground shook violently as buildings crumbled one after another. Such was the scene unfolding before them. I turned decisively and sprinted towards safety. Scumbag, you're on your own now. Without my life-risking protection, there's no way Lu Zhou could come to a good end. When I saw Lu Zhou again, he'd already been given a critical condition notice by the hospital, and only survived after multiple emergency resuscitations. Of course, barely alive, both legs amputated due to compound fractures. Face disfigured by blunt force trauma, with high probability of becoming vegetative. Upon hearing the news, I nearly choked myself trying not to burst out laughing. What a scumbag, serves you right. Out in the open, I was sobbing my heart out, utterly devastated, played the part of the devoted girlfriend perfectly. I also notified Lu Zhou's parents to come help transfer him back to another hospital. The earthquake hit a tourist county town, nestled deep in the mountains with poor transportation access. Lu Zhou is now critically ill. Returning to the city would better aid his recovery. 2. Upon witnessing Lu Zhou's dire condition, Lu's parents were utterly devastated, collapsing from grief multiple times. They spared no expense to bring in top specialists for consultation, yet the outcome remained unchanged. Lu Zhou was condemned to live as a cripple for the rest of his days, but that wasn't all. He even lost the most basic reproductive functions. Yeah, right, with his genitals smashed to pulp. no way, that thing's still functional. Upon hearing this, old man Lu's vision went black as he collapsed with a thud. The Lu family was wealthy and influential, yet their lineage remained sparse, leaving Lu Zhou as their sole heir. With Lu Zhou in this state, it meant the Lu family line would end with him. That very night, the Lu couple went hand in hand to inquire about IVF procedures. This behavior was all too familiar to me. That's just how people are. The heartache is real, but it won't last forever. They'll find another emotional anchor and substitute. After I ruined my previous life, my parents stayed silent at first, but eventually adopted the diligent and bright Lin Shui as their goddaughter to ease their empty nest loneliness. She was diligent, intelligent, beautiful, and sensible, the perfect embodiment of the daughter my parents had always envisioned. So much so that in the end, when Lu Zhou insisted on marrying her, my parents gave their silent consent. They poured all their love into Lin Shui, along with everything that had once been mine. In the beginning, I didn't blame Lin Shui, but later, through Lin Shui's repeated provocations and schemes, I finally saw her true colors. She often visits me in the hospital, but always ends up running out in tears. When asked, she'd only say, "Don't blame my sister, it's my own fault for being unlikable. I stole what belonged to her. I deserve all this." 3. She'd even flaunt how much Lu Zhou adored her. She forced me to look through all their intimate photos together. The more distraught I became, the more it delighted her. As for Lu Zhou, the man I saved at the cost of my own life, he tacitly approved all of this too. What's worse, I learned it was his idea for my parents to adopt a goddaughter, and Lin Shui, he personally brought her to meet my parents. That's when I started suspecting whether those two had been carrying on behind my back, but I lacked the means to investigate further, and this time I'll expose every hidden conspiracy to the light. After leaving the hospital, I drove home. Seeing me return safely, my parents breathed sighs of relief. Just like Lu Zhou, I'm the only child in my family. Otherwise, Lin Shui wouldn't have had the chance to steal the nest. Mom, Dad, even though Lu Zhou's a lost cause now, I won't abandon him. I want to keep taking care of him. We'll figure everything out once he comes to. The moment these words were spoken, a faint smile appeared on my father's face as he nodded repeatedly. Our family and the Lu family have been close friends for generations. It wouldn't be right to abandon Lu Zhou at a time like this. Our daughter's grown up. It's time she took over the family business. My father's gaze grew increasingly approving. In his eyes, I was his pride and joy, though a daughter. I excelled academically and showed remarkable wisdom beyond my years. I also had a natural flair for business. Among all the privileged heirs, I always stood out effortlessly. That's why he couldn't bear the reality of me becoming disabled. He was willing to spend everything to groom Lin Shui as my replacement, just to reclaim his pride. In my father's eyes, pride was indispensable to him. But I wasn't the only one who could bring him that pride. A month passed in the blink of an eye. Lu Zhou still hadn't regained consciousness, yet I visited him punctually every day, tending to him with meticulous care. 4. His parents were deeply moved by my unwavering devotion, showering me with generous gifts both openly and discreetly. As for me, I never turn anyone away. Absolutely, I didn't get these things for free. Seeing how haggard and lifeless old Lu and his wife looked broke my heart, so the next day, I took them to the orphanage. "Uncle, Auntie, won't you adopt one?" With my most earnest and sincere gaze, they froze in their tracks, stunned beyond words. I knew exactly what was going through their minds: shock, confusion, bewilderment, but there was definitely no refusal. I've already looked into it thoroughly. The Lu couple's IVF dreams were shattered. Their age made them ineligible candidates. They nearly cried their eyes out over this. They've already started quietly inquiring about adopting orphans. What choice do we have but to adopt? All those cousins of old Lu's have their eyes on his fortune. Better that than leaving it to these vultures. Might as well raise another obedient and manageable one. At least they'd show some respect. The only concern was, worried Lu Zhou might wake up and cause trouble. Plus adopting now would seem downright heartless. But now none of that matters anymore, because you've got me now, Uncle and Aunt. Please don't turn me away. I'm speaking not just for myself, but for Lu Zhou too. Lu Zhou was such a devoted son. How could he bear to see you grow old alone with no one to care for you? With reddened eyes, I dragged Mr. and Mrs. Lu straight into the orphanage. They kept saying this won't do half-heartedly. Their eyes had already been captured by a group of lively, adorable children. Their gazes gradually filled with tenderness and anticipation. The excuses died on their lips. Eventually, they started discussing with me which child was the most well-behaved and sensible. 5. After a whole morning of careful selection, the two went home contentedly with a thick stack of materials to study. everything was settled quickly. The Liu family eventually adopted a 6-year-old boy, naming him Liu Tianxi. For this occasion, they held a rather grand adoption ceremony. Many prominent aristocratic families were invited to attend. On the day of the banquet, some insinuated that the Liu parents were heartless and unfeeling, already considering adopting outsiders before their own son had even passed, utterly unfit to be parents. I fired back without hesitation, "Shut up, you don't understand anything. It was all my idea for uncle and aunt to do this. As Liu Zhou's girlfriend, it's my duty to care for his parents in his absence. Seeing them so heartbroken tears me apart. Rather than living like this, adopting a child would help them heal faster. If Liu Zhou wakes up, he'd absolutely support my decision." I spoke with righteous indignation and resounding conviction. Mr. and Mrs. Liu on stage immediately welled up with tears, unable to stop themselves from bowing their heads to wipe their eyes. "I'll hold the fort." The subsequent proceedings went remarkably smoothly. As I was leaving, Mrs. Liu pulled me aside and stuffed multiple sets of keys and property deeds into my arms. The total value easily exceeded hundreds of millions. On the way back, then something unexpected happened. A girl suddenly darted out into the road and blocked our car head-on. The terrified driver slammed on the brakes. The momentum sent me and my parents lurching violently forward. After finally catching our breath, I stepped out of the car. Seeing the girl's youthful yet vaguely familiar face, I smiled. "Lin Shui. Long time no see." At that moment, Lin Shui noticed me getting out of the vehicle. He seemed utterly stunned, eyes widening in disbelief before blurting out, "Zhou Xia, what are you doing here? Weren't you paralyzed from the neck down?" 6. The words hung in the air. Uncle Wang, the driver, immediately frowned and shooed Lin Shui away, grumbling in annoyance. Where did this lunatic come from, blocking the car and cursing our young mistress? What a nutcase. But Lin Shui refused to back down. She shook off Uncle Wang, dashed to the front of the car, and began frantically pounding on the window, shouting, "Mom, Dad, it's me, Xiaoxue, your adopted daughter. Don't you recognize me anymore? Come down and see me." My parents were utterly terrified, staring in complete bewilderment at Lin Shui's frenzied behavior, completely clueless about what she was trying to pull. I saw Uncle Wang restraining Lin Shui. My mom hurriedly got out of the car, grabbed me, and we dashed back inside, panting as we ran. She kept saying, "Xiaxia, run. There's a lunatic here." Lin Shui was utterly devastated by those words, her eyes welling up with tears, desperately making her last stand. She kept recounting those heartwarming moments and happy memories with my parents. What a pity. All this just earned me my mother calling me a lunatic. When had Lin Shui, the apple of my mother's eye who was coddled beyond measure in her past life, ever been treated this way, even after the car had driven quite a distance away? Lin Shui's heart-wrenching sobs could still faintly be heard. My parents simply brushed off the incident. They just thought they'd met some lunatic. But I saw right through it. Lin Shui was also reborn, just like me. She retained memories from her past life, following the course of our previous lives. Right about now, Liu Zhou should be bringing her to meet my parents for the first time, but now, everything has changed. It's Liu Zhou lying half dead on the hospital bed. No one's pulling strings for her anymore. 7. The news of Liu Zhou's disability was tightly controlled by the Liu family. As a poor student, Lin Shui had no way of uncovering the truth. That's why she panicked. She even resorted to stopping their car just to get back on my parents' radar. Just a few days later, the investigative report on Liu Zhou and Lin Shui was completed, a hefty stack of documents. It meticulously documented the secret romantic affair between the two. It all began 2 years ago. That's when these two first met, a successful entrepreneur from a wealthy family, and a resilient beauty with an iron will. They hit it off almost instantly. Back when Liu Zhou was still dating me, he put on this loving couple act while secretly cheating on me like there was no tomorrow. Liu Zhou was trying to push Lin Shui into my place, but let's face it, no matter how clever and charming this Cinderella was, the Liu family would never accept someone like her. That's why in my past life, after I became disabled, he swiftly arranged for Lin Shui to replace me under the pretense of filial piety toward my parents. What a perfect arrangement for his beloved. Here's the kicker. This had been planned a whole year prior. Liu Zhou had already arranged for Lin Shui to gradually emulate and learn my mannerisms and personality. She could even perfectly replicate many of my business ideas and creative sparks. Reading this, it suddenly struck me, even without my life-saving act during the earthquake, Liu Zhou would have schemed to plant Lin Shui into my household, of course, provided they staged some accident to kill or cripple me, but I'm in no hurry to expose their affair or seek revenge on Lin Shui. After all, there's plenty of time. After all the torment I endured in my past life, how could they possibly escape theirs? 2 weeks later, news came from the hospital. Lu Zhou regained consciousness. 8. At that time, I was having tea with Mrs. Lu at the Lu residence, and had brought some small toys for Lu Tianxi. As for Mrs. Lu, when she heard the news, her surprise was tinged with a hint of guilt. She held Lu Tianxi tightly in her arms, speechless for quite some time. Yeah, after all, Lu Zhou had been unconscious for so long that even the doctors had lost hope. He was destined to remain in a vegetative state for the rest of his life. Never imagined he'd actually wake up. Auntie, don't worry. Lu Zhou is a filial son, he'll understand your difficult position. Besides, Tianxi is such a sweet and sensible child, he's bound to adore him. Leave everything to me. Only after I'd reassured her did Mrs. Lu hurry off to the hospital. The truth speaks for itself. Anyone would lose it upon realizing they've been replaced by their parents' new backup child. Absolute madness. The hospital room descended into chaos beyond my worst expectations. Lu Zhou went berserk, smashing everything within reach, his pallid face twisted with fury. You're all monsters. That bastard child was brought home before I'm even cold in my grave. The Lu family belongs to me. No one shall take it. This terrified old master and Madame Lu, especially their newly reunited son Lu Tianxi. The poor child had never witnessed such a scene before, though frightened himself. The boy stood his ground and shielded his parents with his small frame. Don't be scared, Mom and Dad. Tianxi will protect you. In that instant, tears of emotion welled up in their eyes. After hastily giving a few instructions, they strode off with Lu Tianxi in tow. The receding figure radiated cold determination. As for Lu Zhou, he was utterly dumbfounded. He simply couldn't comprehend how this newly adopted brat had so swiftly usurped his position. The reason is quite simple. It's all because of Lu Tianxi. Absolutely brilliant. 9. Not only is he linguistically gifted, but he became fluent in English almost immediately after starting to learn. Her artistic talent was extraordinary. Just casually playing piano at the adoption banquet earned continuous praise from master musicians. She was even accepted as a protégé on the spot. She could grasp 5th grade material as a first grader, acing every test with perfect scores. She'd long been the prodigy everyone marveled at in academic circles. During this period, he's been bringing nothing but honor to the Lu family. By contrast, that crippled Lu Zhou, who could do nothing but vent his impotent rage on others. This is utterly disappointing. Lu Zhou, can't you be more sensible? Do you have any idea how many tears your uncle and aunt have shed for you? How long they've been suffering? I was the only one left behind, my face full of disappointment, righteously rebuked. They've suffered so much. If they hadn't adopted Tianxi, they might not have made it through. Do you actually want them to die? I snapped furiously, slammed the door and stormed out. Lu Zhou's anguished screams soon echoed from the hospital room. I stood outside the door. After listening with my eyes closed for a few minutes, I instantly felt refreshed and clear-headed. Don't blame me for being ruthless. After all, these were the exact things Lu Zhou did to me in our past life. When I woke up in the hospital bed, there they were, my parents with Lin Shui, looking like the perfect little family while I stood there feeling like an outsider. And then there was Lu Zhou. Seeing my sullen expression, he immediately launched into a lecture without even asking why, accusing me of being petty and unfilial. Rejecting Lin Shui would be forcing my parents to their graves. My heart was torn between anxiety and anguish. That's not true. My facial nerves were damaged. I've lost the ability to show any expression. But no one would listen to my explanation. Lu Zhou even dragged my parents away on the spot, told me to cool off by myself. Did anyone ever care about my heartbreak and breakdown? 10. At least Lu Zhou can still speak and move, with some mobility in his upper body, but in my past life, I was completely paralyzed from the neck down. I couldn't move a single muscle except for my eyes and mouth. My suffering compared to Lu Zhou's was no less than his. After I left, Lu Zhou kept making scenes for days on end. At first, Mr. and Mrs. Lu still had affection for their son, but Lu Zhou couldn't control his temper, constantly berating and mocking Lu Tianxi. Over time, even his parents grew disappointed with him. They didn't even bother going to the hospital, claiming it was to give Lu Zhou ample time to cool off, let him rest undisturbed. They even instructed the hospital and caregivers to turn away all visitors, all to prevent Lu Zhou from spouting nonsense and tarnishing the Lu family's reputation. As for me, I'm the sole exception. After all, I'd already infiltrated the Lu family's inner circle. Not only did Mr. and Mrs. Lu treat me like their own daughter, even Lu Tianxi showed me extraordinary affection, kept calling me sister nonstop. Mrs. Lu held my hand and said repeatedly, Shasha dear, when things settle down, I'll officially adopt you as my goddaughter. You're such a good girl, I understand everything, we all know the truth. With Lu Zhou's circumstances, marriage is completely out of the question for him. As an heiress from a wealthy family, why would I waste my life waiting on him? What I'd done already goes above and beyond. Mrs. Lu took the initiative to formally adopt me as her goddaughter. This not only preserved our existing bond but strengthened it further, while also preventing potential complications down the road. In the following days, I made daily hospital visits like clockwork, didn't say another word before leaving, launched into a scathing critique of Lu Zhou, accusing him of being petty-minded and lacking vision. After the verbal onslaught, turned on their heel and walked away. 11. Back and forth it went. Lu Zhou completely broke down. After exhausting every means, he bribed the nurses to contact someone, Lin Shui, his precious darling. After Lin Shui received the message, she rushed over without a moment's delay. At the sight of Lu Zhou's disfigured and disabled body on the hospital bed, she covered her mouth in shock, tears streaming uncontrollably. Zhou, what's wrong with you? Don't scare me like this. Lin Shui never expected things to turn out this way. Didn't I risk my life to protect Lu Zhou? How did things end up like this? It's all that bitch Zhou Xia's fault. She just ran off and left me. If it weren't for her, I wouldn't have gotten smashed up like this. After hearing Lu Zhou's explanation, Lin Shui stood frozen for a long moment before realizing where things had gone wrong. Then Lin Shui recounted everything about her rebirth and her previous life. The two of them spent quite some time reviewing the events, finally came to the bitter conclusion through gritted teeth, their current plight is all my fault. Why didn't I risk my life to go back and save Lu Zhou? It's all because I'm too selfish. They're coming for revenge, to reclaim everything they've lost, and me, watching this unfold on the surveillance feed, I couldn't help but sigh repeatedly, just as I thought. Trashy men and cheap women deserve each other for a reason, they're equally shameless. Soon enough, Lu Zhou sprang into action. Gone was his usual, replaced by an unexpected calm and maturity. When I arrived, he even managed a faint smile, as if nothing had ever happened between us. Seeing him like this, Mr. and Mrs. Lu's hearts eventually softened, and they began visiting him at the hospital regularly, of course, and their precious youngest son, Lu Tianxi. Parents do love to brag about their children's achievements. The conversation always seems to veer off track after just a few sentences. 12. Xiao Zhou. This Tianxi kid is really bright. He aced his exams again yesterday, and even had the thoughtfulness to cook for us when he got home. Don't you worry, once Tianxi makes something of himself, he'll take good care of you. Every time this happened, Lu Zhou's face would turn all shades of purple, grinding his teeth to stop himself from cursing out loud, outwardly praising Lu Tianxi along with everyone else, secretly wishing they could skin Lu Tianxi alive. A month later, Lu Zhou finally reached his breaking point. He blurted out his idea without hesitation. Mom, Dad, I want to marry Xia. I know I'm a good-for-nothing and shouldn't hold Xia back, but I truly love her, and she loves me too. I know Xia would never abandon me. After Lu Zhou spoke, everyone fell silent. When no one backed him up, Lu Zhou gritted his teeth and threatened to kill himself if they didn't agree, especially when they saw me walk in. They dragged me off to force a marriage registration, even picking the date themselves. A crowd quickly gathered at the entrance. People were whispering and pointing, some even live-streaming the whole thing. They kept blabbering that Lu Zhou got injured like this solely to save me. The insinuation was clear. If I refused to marry Lu Zhou, I'd be heartless and ungrateful. Lu Zhou really upped his acting game, suddenly pulling out a knife and pressing it against his own throat. Xia, I saved you of my own free will. I won't make things difficult for you. Don't worry, I'll just go die right now. At this sight, the onlookers all started berating me. What a heartless woman, she's utterly shameless. What's the big deal about getting married? What's wrong with saying yes? He did save her life after all. As the situation and public opinion grew increasingly heated and out of control, Lu's father, who had remained silent until now, suddenly rushed forward. 13. He snatched the knife from Lu Zhou's hand and shouted angrily, "Enough, your mother and I have officially adopted Xia as our goddaughter. From now on, you two are siblings in all but blood. Put that filthy idea out of your head for good." It finally dawned on Father Lu. Lu Zhou had this planned all along. His recent calm and sensible act was just to trick them into withdrawing all the guards, all for this ambush today. No need to guess. That crowd of spectators outside was probably Lu Zhou's doing too. Right after that, Mother Lu added salt to the wound with bitter disappointment. "My son, not only are you crippled, But you've lost your manhood too, and you insist on marrying Shasha. You're just ruining her life. Any woman who marries you would be doomed to a lifetime of loneliness. At this moment, the onlookers suddenly realized the truth. The poor guy lost his manhood, so he's a eunuch. What's the point of getting married in that condition? What a bloody disgrace. Now that's what I call decent parents. They actually care about the girl's well-being. Lu Zhou's face darkened like charcoal. His fists clenched with a livid expression. I feel like dying from shame. For a man, having such things discussed in broad daylight is nothing but a total humiliation. The most infuriating part, it was his own mother who spilled the beans. Who the hell could take this? The court of public opinion was clearly leaning one way. Someone immediately stepped forward to defend Lu Zhou, speaking with righteous indignation. Not getting married is fine, at the very least. Lu Zhou saved this woman's life and got injured in the process. Is it too much to ask for some compensation? At the very least, half the family fortune should go to them. As for Lu Zhou, he met my gaze with a shadowy smirk. 14. Lu Zhou clearly took advantage of the earthquake's chaos. No surveillance, no witnesses. To brazenly spin this lie about saving my life, he struck first to gain the upper hand. Even if I deny it, they'll think I'm just being stubborn. Either way, he comes out on top. Lu Zhou seized the moment, even claiming that when I fainted from shock, he heroically carried me to safety. He himself lost the chance to escape. The heartfelt words brought tears to everyone's eyes, but the next moment, a swarm of reporters burst through the door and rushed toward me. Miss Zhou, may I have a quick interview with you? You bravely rescued multiple people at the disaster site. What are your thoughts on this experience? Miss Zhou, will you be attending the citywide awards ceremony honoring your heroic actions? The entire room fell into awkward silence. With everyone exchanging confused glances, a journalist couldn't take it anymore and turned on the TV. Nearly every channel was covering the same story, all about me. Hashtag young woman rushes into disaster zone multiple times, heroically saves over a dozen trapped civilians. Hashtag rescued survivors post thank you videos honoring the brave young woman. Hashtag the hero who saved lives turns out to be the daughter of our city's prominent entrepreneur. Wait. Right next to the series of red headlines were my on-site photos and videos. In the video, I dashed forward with lightning speed, leveraging my knowledge of the terrain while barely considering my own safety. Time and again I ventured deep into the disaster zone, carrying people in my arms and on my back to rescue over a dozen survivors. Even when covered in blood myself, I never faltered for a second. This continued until the rescue troops arrived. I slipped away quietly. The footage is grainy, taken from the only surviving surveillance camera at the scene. At this very moment, all eyes instinctively turned to Lu Zhou. 15. It's obvious to anyone with eyes. Do I really need his help like this? And another thing, didn't he say I passed out from the start? Who's that sprinting like the wind in the video? A damn ghost or something? Lu Zhou stood speechless, fists clenched and face dark as thunder. After what felt like forever, he finally choked out, maybe I remembered wrong. The moment these words were spoken, the entire room erupted in uproar. Mr. and Mrs. Lu were so furious they couldn't lift their heads, wishing they could beat this ungrateful wretch to death on the spot. On the way home, I checked my phone. Just as I expected, the internet was flooded with nothing but scathing criticism and mockery of Lu Zhou's shamelessness. The whole incident in the hospital room was live-streamed. The people Lu Zhou hired had already shut down the live stream when things went south. But my crew wouldn't do that. I even bought extra bandwidth specifically to capture this moment. Damn right, I'm fully aware of all Lu Zhou's schemes. The ward surveillance cameras aren't just for decoration. Every twist today unfolded exactly as I anticipated. Lu's parents will back me up. It's inevitable. Our friendship played a part, but so did me exposing Lu Zhou's scheme. This time it wasn't just about targeting me. Lu Zhou also secretly sold the Lu family's confidential documents to competitors. This is how they planned to get back at Lu's parents. In this situation, Lu's parents probably wanted to strangle Lu Zhou themselves, let alone help me with such a trivial matter. As for rescuing people in the earthquake zone, all of this is absolutely true. After leaving Lu Zhou behind, I witnessed the disaster zone, crumbling walls, desperate screams everywhere. My heart ached. I remembered my past self, also an earthquake survivor, and understood that unspeakable agony, so I had to save them. I've trained in Sanda and have decent physical fitness. Drawing from my past life memories, I gave everything to save people, stumbling and getting injured along the way, but never giving up. 16. I wouldn't wish the pain I've endured on anyone else. After the rescue, slipped away quietly. I'm no saint, I don't do good deeds anonymously. I just prefer to claim credit when it matters most, like right now. As for Lin Shui, she's probably cooling her heels at the police station waiting for someone to bail her out. After all, she was handpicked by Lu Zhou to steal the Lu family's confidential documents. Old man Lu is absolutely livid this time. I've already instructed my lawyer to reject any settlement offers. Their stance is absolutely uncompromising. Given the nature of Lin Shui's crimes, even if unsuccessful, a severe trial could still land her in prison. Frankly, I can't be bothered to dwell on these matters. In the coming days, I'm swamped. Interviews with TV stations and major satellite media, official program recordings, along with all sorts of company matters. Because of this incident involving me, our family company's stock has been riding the wave, with market value skyrocketing, and my father had long been prepared to step aside for more capable leadership. They're already preparing to gradually hand over the company to me. As for my mother, she's been busy attending banquets, basking in everyone's praises for me, grinning from ear to ear. But that wasn't all. To show his gratitude, Mr. Lu deliberately reclaimed all the shares from Lu Zhou's hands. They voluntarily gave me a portion of it, called it a gift for taking me as their goddaughter. Those peaceful days didn't last long. Then came news from the detention center. Lin Shui is pregnant. That's not the point. The real bombshell. Lin Shui swears the baby is Lu Zhou's. Lu's parents rushed to the scene in the dead of night. According to the doctor's diagnosis, Lin Shui is 4 months pregnant, and the fetus is developing perfectly. 4 months. That was right before the earthquake happened. 17. Lu's parents didn't believe it at first, but Lin Shui made it sound so convincing. She even produced solid evidence of her relationship with Lu Zhou. Seeing how adamant Lin Shui was, Lu's parents began to waver. As for Lu Zhou, he completely shed his usual despondency and gloom upon hearing the news. Despite his frail condition, he insisted on rushing to care for Lin Shui. This look, anyone with eyes can see there's something going on between them. A paternity test would probably be overkill. The results came out quickly. The child in Lin Shui's womb is indeed Lu Zhou's, just like that. Lu's parents were both shocked and overjoyed, practically ready to treat Lin Shui like royalty. After all, this is the Lu family's one and only heir. With a child to secure her position, Lin Shui not only completely turned her life around, but also became outrageously arrogant. First, she complained about the hospital conditions and demanded to move into a luxury mansion. Then she developed a taste for designer clothes and handbags. The slightest inconvenience, and they're already threatening to end it all, threatening to take the unborn child down with her. Though disgusted, Lu's parents bit their tongues for the sake of their grandchild, but Lin Shui's demands clearly didn't stop there. She's getting married, not just registering the marriage, but throwing a grand wedding too. This really put Mr. and Mrs. Lu in a tight spot. Marriage. This marriage means the Lu family officially recognizes Lin Shui as their daughter-in-law. From now on, we'll be one family. But here's the thing, everyone knows it. I was Lu Zhou's girlfriend, and even though we ended on bad terms, judging by Lin Shui's pregnancy timeline, it's pretty obvious what happened. Lu Zhou cheated during our relationship. Let's call a spade a spade. Lin Shui was the other woman. Right now I'm at the peak of my fame and popularity. Then news breaks that I've been cheated on. Lu Zhou, Lin Shui, and the entire Lu family would probably get torn to shreds. 18. I was planning to delay this for a few more days, but Lin Shui wasn't having it. She couldn't care less about reputation or criticism. She'd had enough of this miserable life. In her past life, Lu Zhou had helped her marry into wealth. Now, she'd have to rely on herself. When Lu's parents remained silent, Lin Shui decided to go all the way. She directly posted a photo of herself with Lu Zhou online, with the caption, "True love stands the test of time, wedding countdown begins." By the time Lu's parents found out, it was already too late. Lin Shui's comment section had exploded. Netizens dug up photos of Lin Shui's prenatal checkups and medical records, even uncovering intimate pre-earthquake footage of her with Lu Zhou. The evidence of Lu Zhou's affair is now irrefutable. The internet has erupted in a storm of condemnation, yet none of this fazed Lu Zhou or Lin Shui in the slightest. What do two people already rotten to the core have left to fear? Lin Shui in particular even had the audacity to clap back at netizens. Homewrecker. The real third wheel is the one who isn't loved. Love doesn't follow a cue. We'll be happy together. Because these two acted first and reported later, old Mr. and Mrs. Lu were so furious they nearly fainted. But what's done is done. After weighing the pros and cons, they ultimately agreed to Lin Shui's demands. They knew they'd face harsh criticism and even jeopardize the company, but they just couldn't hold back anymore. All for their precious grandson. They were willing to do absolutely anything, but that wasn't all. They even complied with Lin Shui's increasingly outrageous demands, like demanding all the gifted shares back from me, send the newly adopted Lu Tianxi back to the orphanage, and so on and so forth. The rest I couldn't care less about, but Lu Tianxi, after all we've been through together, I can't just stand by and watch him get abandoned again. 19. Despite my reasoned arguments, the Lu parents remained unmoved. Stubbornly clinging to their bloodline doctrine, they claimed they only adopted Lu Tianxi because they had no heir. Now that they've got their own grandson, of course an outsider isn't needed anymore. I laughed in bitter disbelief. Done with these ungrateful wretches, I took Lu Tianxi back to my place. To my relief, my parents welcomed Lu Tianxi warmly. The company's been handed over to me anyway, and it's not like they have anything better to do at home. Might as well keep an eye on Lu Tianxi while we're at it. Thanks to Mr. and Mrs. Lu's questionable maneuvers, Lu Corporation stocks took a nosedive. Internal divisions had long been brewing. Everyone thought old Lu was being utterly selfish, as if the company belonged to him alone. As chairman, how could he fail to set a proper example? Seizing the opportunity, old Lu's cousins exploited the situation, poaching quite a few key employees. Quite the opposite, my career has been flourishing. Netizens' outrage towards Lu Zhou and Lin Shui is only matched by their sympathy and indignation on my behalf. The number of people supporting me is beyond count. A week later, it was Lu Zhou and Lin Shui's wedding day. The Lu family spared no expense, having chosen to prioritize their grandson. They were now fully committed to this path, yet despite the extravagant arrangements, only a handful of people showed up. No self-respecting person would attend a cheater and his mistress's wedding. Rumor has it Lin Shui smashed her $1 million jade bracelet in fury afterward. As for Lu Zhou, they even messaged me directly to confront me. Zhou Xia, was this your doing? What's your problem? You actually enjoy humiliating me. Listen, I'll never love you in this lifetime. Mark my words, you'll pay for this someday. That cracked me up. 20. Came right back with, there's a difference between dreams and illusions. Did your parents give you that mouth just to bark nonsense? Maybe you should get your head checked. Blocked and deleted in a flash after saying that. 2 months later, I got the news. Lin Shui had a miscarriage. The fetus suddenly lost its heartbeat, and after failed resuscitation, they had to perform an induced delivery. Just like that, the Lu parents ended up with absolutely nothing to show for their efforts. For the sake of this child, they've completely lost face, offended so many people, and nearly got chewed out by the company executives. The two of them refused to accept it. They even started spinning conspiracy theories, suspecting I was getting back at them. They rigged it. I didn't say a word. I called the police right away, and the investigation naturally proved my innocence. The hospital confirmed it too. The child had inherent genetic deficiencies that simply hadn't manifested until now. No one is to blame for this. The Lu parents completely broke down from the shock and were hospitalized with stress-related conditions, but upon their discharge, they discovered the company has changed hands. Lu's cousin had long seized the opportunity to win people over and aggressively bought up scattered shares, stripping Lu's father of his chairman position. After this incident, Lu's parents aged a decade overnight. The ordeal wasn't over yet. Now I had to deal with Lu Zhou and Lin Shui at the hospital. Ever since Lin Shui lost the baby, Lu Zhou had completely lost his mind. He alternated between beating and berating Lin Shui daily, their screaming matches never ending. Back and forth it went. Lu's parents were utterly heartbroken. After leaving a sum of money, they simply vanished. As for Lin Shui, she completely lost herself after taking the money. Hiring a random caretaker for Lu Zhou before washing her hands of the matter, and that caregiver, the very psychopath who tortured me to death in my past life. Later on, Lu Zhou died, just like my past self, tortured to death by that sadistic nurse. 21. He had complained to Lin Shui about it before, but Lin Shui simply brushed it off. She even scolded Lu Zhou for being oversensitive and acting like a spoiled brat. It wasn't until after Lu Zhou's death that the horrifying wounds on his body were discovered. The abusive orderly was thrown behind bars. As for Lin Shui, he died at home just a few days later. After the miscarriage, she became mentally unstable, developing both a gambling addiction and drug dependency. This time, the drug overdose proved instantly fatal. Such a tragedy occurred. Lu's parents finally decided to show up, after handling both Lu Zhou and Lin Shui's funeral arrangements. This time they weren't in a hurry to leave. Instead, they came to visit me, or rather, to see Lu Tianxi. All the sons and grandsons are dead. Finally remembered the adopted genius son from years past. They've grown old, and suffered too many shocks. Blood ties stopped matching long ago. What a pity. Lu Tianxi is no longer with me. You two haven't heard yet, have you? Tianxi's birth parents have come for him. Tianxi is actually the youngest son of Asia's richest family. He only ended up in the orphanage after getting lost by accident. After I finished speaking, I made sure to show Mr. and Mrs. Lu the news report. #billionaire's long-lost youngest son found and his adoptive mother is her. #, in grateful return. Tycoon pours millions into Zhou family business. Good deeds bring good fortune. The charmed life of Zhou Xia. At this very moment, only then did Mr. and Mrs. Lu realize what opportunity they'd lost. If only they hadn't abandoned Lu Tianxi back then. Out of gratitude for their upbringing, Lu Tianxi's birth parents would surely repay them with all their might, just like me now. What a pity, it's all too late, it's just their ill fate, they weren't blessed with such good fortune. 22. After exchanging some polite compliments about virtue being rewarded, they took their leave, watching Mr. and Mrs. Lu's retreating figures. I laughed. Truth be told, I was never truly a good person. I knew Lu Tianxi's true identity from the very beginning, in my past life, when I was in the hospital. News broke that the youngest son of Asia's richest man was tracked down to an orphanage by his enemies and brutally murdered. The manner of death was utterly gruesome. A second chance at life. I'm ambitious. I'll seize every opportunity within my grasp. I deliberately brought Lu's parents to the orphanage where Lu Tianxi lived. It was also me who asked the director to highlight Lu Tianxi during the introduction. I've learned that Lu Tianxi lost his memory right after arriving at the orphanage. But that never hindered his remarkable intelligence. His parents would choose him. What a shame. They're so heartless and selfish, abandoning Lu Tianxi completely just for their own grandson. But me, I can take him in without raising any suspicion. Everything falls perfectly into place. I gave them the opportunity. Too bad they didn't take it. Lin Shue's pregnancy was exactly as I'd anticipated. In my past life, Lin Shue was also pregnant, unfortunately. The pregnancy couldn't be sustained due to genetic abnormalities. This lifetime followed the same pattern. I had someone discreetly inform Lin Shue that the Lu parents never intended to accept her. We'll kick her out after she gives birth. That's why she desperately exposed her affair with Lu Zhou. Even being called a homewrecker didn't stop her. All to secure her position. Lin Shue demanded marriage, demanded Lu Tianxi's eviction, demanded company shares, demanded money. The Lu parents could have refused all these demands, yet for the sake of their precious grandson, they chose silent compliance and support. Thus, all this came to pass. It was doomed to be a futile effort from the start. As for that deranged caregiver, before I could intervene, Lin Shue confronted her first. From beginning to end, Lin Shue was well aware that caregiver was shady, but she did it on purpose. Just like how she tormented me in our past lives, now she's doing the same to Lu Zhou. Once Lu Zhou dies, all the money left by his father will be hers. 23. As for me, I just managed to call the police for Lu Zhou in his final moments. I knew Lin Shue was doing drugs. Before I could even report her, she overdosed and kicked the bucket. Maybe it's for the best. At least I'll have Lu Zhou for company on the road to rebirth. Later, my career flourished, and under my leadership, the company reached unprecedented heights. As for my parents, they started pressuring me to get married. Just like all parents do, they had this whole life path planned out for me. When I firmly refused, my dad took it as a challenge to his authority, to teach me a lesson and keep me in line. My father came out of retirement, trying to regain control of the company, but now, he finally realized everything had changed. His authority and prestige had been gradually eclipsed by me over these years, to the point where most people in the company don't even recognize him anymore. Nobody pays attention to or cares about his decrees. Of course my dad refused to accept it at first. He reached out to former partners, friends, and investors, but came up empty-handed. Nobody was willing to help him. After hitting wall after wall, my father finally understood. He lost. I'm no longer someone he can manipulate at will. I remain his pride, unique and irreplaceable, now and always. As for him, forever shackled to pride. All of this is what I've fought so hard for, my past life's tragedy. Are Lu Zhou and Lin Shue really the only villains here? Aren't my parents just as guilty? They never laid hands on me or schemed against me, but they abandoned me and crushed my will to live. Sometimes, those who stay silent share the guilt of the abuser. During those years confined to a sickbed in my past life, watching Lu Zhou before me, his feet trapped beneath the boulder, throne, if I could reach an irreplaceable position, even as a cripple. No one would dare discard me at will. Men, family, friendship, they will all betray you. Only power and status remain loyal, a second chance at life. My goals have always been crystal clear, shed all distractions and focus solely on building my career. The end. Next story. Kwang Jing threw money at me, and I slapped him in public. I hate him for treating me like a plaything, but after I was murdered, he killed my enemy for me and committed suicide in front of my grave to show his love for me. Reborn. Back to the day they first met, he leaned against his Porsche and waved his credit card. 30,000. I'll buy you dinner. This time I sat directly in the passenger seat. Only 30,000. You have to pay more. 1. I died and my soul floated over the cemetery. Both my parents passed away, and I don't know who handled my funeral affairs. At the beginning, teachers, classmates from school, and friends from the welfare home came to see me. I longed to hear what happened to the two people who harmed me. But no one mentioned it. Later, it became quiet again. 2 months later, Kwang Jing came. He was one of what I call a pursuer. To put it nicely, he is a pursuer, but in fact he is the financial sponsor who wants to support me. I hate him very much. On the day of reporting for my junior year, Kwang Jing blocked me at the school gate. He drove a luxury car and stretched out his hand holding a credit card from the car and waved it around, as if giving me alms. Su Wei, here is 30,000. I want you to have dinner with me. I turned and walked away, and he followed me in his slow car. Along the way, parents and classmates carrying luggage all looked at us. There were also parents who pointed at us and whispered to their children who had just started school, when you go to college, you must study hard. If you need money, ask your family for it. Don't try to be like other rich men. Girls should love themselves. I felt ashamed and angry, with tears welling up in my eyes. As soon as he got off the car, I slapped him on the spot. Kwang Jing, who do you think I am? Do you respect others? Kwang Jing was beaten back half a step, with red marks clearly visible on his face. His eyes turned cold instantly. He pursed his lips and punched the car door. Sooner or later you will beg me for help. I wiped away my tears and turned away. Later, Kwang Jing also harassed me, and every time I scolded him, I gritted my teeth and I once thought he would hit me, but in the end, he just said, Su Wei, remember, except for me, no one in this world will be truly generous to you. What he said was too arrogant and fake, so I just ignored it. Anyone could be sincere except him. It was not until I calmed down and thought back to the days after his death that I realized that it was Kwang Jing who was truly generous to me. At that time, the dean had another heart attack and was sent to the hospital, and he had to undergo surgery as soon as possible. I spent all my time working from 8 in the morning to 5 in the morning, sleeping for 3 hours and then getting up to continue. One time I came out of a KTV at 5 in the morning and was so tired that I fell asleep sitting at the door. It was Kwang Jing who woke me up. He stared at me quietly for a while, then he squatted down and looked me in the eye and said, "The counselor told me to tell you that if you don't go back to class, you will be put on probation." I rubbed my face and said, "Wait a little longer until I finish my work today." Kwang Jing frowned, looking unhappy. "Are you so short of money?" I didn't say anything. Kwang Jing took out a card from his pocket and said, "Here." I immediately turned my head away. "I don't want your money. Can I eat you?" He sneered. "Don't worry, I'm not supporting you. I'm just borrowing you. When will it be returned?" I asked. Casual. I lowered my head, hesitating whether to answer it. Kwang Jing's patience was clearly running out. He grabbed my hand and shoved the card into my palm. "You can consider other people's money, but not mine. You are like a stubborn donkey. You treat your self-esteem as a carrot and you can pull the millstone for your whole life." I clutched the card tightly. He doesn't understand that for me. Self-esteem is the only thing that I don't need to fight for. I can keep it just by persisting. I whispered, "I'll pay you back when I graduate and get a job." Kwang Jing stared at me for a few seconds and suddenly smiled. "Su Wei, you really have guts, too. It's a pity that I died before I graduated. Is Kwang Jing here to collect debt from me?" He seemed much more haggard and had a little stubble on his face. He is different from the young man who is always well dressed in my memory. He sat quietly in front of my tombstone for a while, then took out a ring from his pocket. I have seen that ring. He always wears it on his hand and never takes it off. Kwang Jing placed the ring in front of the tombstone, together with the flowers, then supported himself with his hands and looked up at my photo on the tombstone. "Su Wei, you are really stupid. You don't even know how you died, and you still need your man to help you find out. Whoever is my man, I will spit on him." I bribed those idiots with just a few bucks, and they finally ruled that you committed suicide, but it doesn't matter. Your man is more capable, and he avenged you. I'll make them pay you back tenfold for the blow you took. He laughed heartily, but the wind blew his hair into a mess, and he looked so lonely. In your next life, I hope you can be born into a good family and not live such a hard life, he said softly. After Kwang Jing finished speaking, he took out a dagger from behind and stabbed it straight into his heart. No matter how much I cried and screamed, I couldn't stop the blood from gushing out. His lips moved slightly. So, you are in so much pain. Kwang Jing fell in a pool of blood, dead. I cried bitterly and touched his eyebrows, shouting help again and again. Please, someone can come and save him, but no one can hear my voice. 3. When I opened my eyes again, I was standing at the university gate. In front of him was Kwang Jing, who was holding a credit card and looked like he deserved a beating. At this moment, he had not yet been provoked by my attitude to the point where he was emitting a sharp and gloomy aura. Nor had he been tainted with the dejection and determination before committing suicide. He is still full of vigor and is a favored child of heaven, not a murderer. Su Wei, here is 30,000. I want you to have dinner with me. Seeing that I was looking at him in silence, he added, don't rush to reject me. Without waiting for him to finish, I opened the car door and sat in the passenger seat. Who said I was going to refuse? Kwang Jing was stunned for a moment, as if surprised by my attitude. Then he raised a playful smile and got back into the car. It was not until then that I realized that this was not a dream. I was really reborn. I leaned against the car window and could feel Kwang Jing observing me out of the corner of my eye. Now he doesn't know me. I agreed to get in his car so readily. He probably thought I was a gold digger, but if I were to live my life over again, I would definitely give it to him. In my previous life, in order to protect my ridiculous self-esteem, I made myself and the dean suffer too much. After I die, her illness will never be cured and she will have no choice but to wait for death. The person who had set his sights on me didn't dare to do anything to me at first because Kwang Jing was around. But when Kwang Jing's family went bankrupt and he was unable to take care of himself, and he gave up pursuing me, he started to pester me like a rat that had been lurking in the sewer for a long time and finally climbed out. Fortunately, God has given me another chance to correct my fate. Not only do I want Kwang Jing to live well, but the dean and I also want to live well. 4. The restaurant was chosen by Kwang Jing. The environment is fresh and elegant, and any dish on the menu costs several days' salary of mine. He was always so generous when pursuing people, or maybe what seemed like a huge investment to me was just an ordinary expense to him. Kwang Jing looked at me straight, as if he wanted to see through my thoughts. Through the window, the evening sun shines on the side of his face, outlining a clear outline and a straight nose, making him handsome and sharp. Why did you agree to have dinner with me? He raised his eyebrows slightly, his tone full of teasing. Actually, Kwang Jing is quite good-looking. I have always known that. It's just that he looks too frivolous, has an overwhelming aura, and does all kinds of things to harass me, so that this face makes me feel that he is just a playboy's capital for feasting and drinking, and he is just a beast in human clothing. It was not until the moment Kwang Jing fell in front of my grave that I realized that compared to that bleak and empty look, this aggressive and confident look was more familiar to me. It suits him better too. I'm hungry. I picked up the food seriously. The person opposite me started to look at me in a somewhat subtle way. I added, besides, you can earn 30,000 yuan for a meal. Why not agree? Kwang Jing's original teasing words were completely blocked. As if he didn't expect that a girl could talk about worshipping money so confidently, he showed a somewhat amused expression. Don't you really know why I give you money? Not only do I know, I'm going to agree, I said, but I have one condition. Oh, I want another 200,000. I'll be available at your service until you graduate, but we can't have any intimate relations. Kwang Jing laughed out loud. You mean, I give you money but I can't touch you? I know what I said is ridiculous. As expected, he leaned back on the sofa, his tone nonchalant but revealing a hint of contempt. Why do you think you are worth so much money? I said calmly. I'm just stating my conditions. You can of course call me a gold digger and then turn around and look for a prettier girl. The corners of his lips curled up slightly, but he didn't respond immediately. But I knew he would agree, because based on my understanding of Kwang Jing, he has had an unusual obsession with me since the first time we met, and my resistance and disgust made him determined not to give up. I don't think he really loves me enough to die, so maybe, my face is really attractive to him. Besides, 200,000 is just a drop in the bucket for him. Interesting. Kwang Jing finally put away his playful smile and looked serious. But I also have my own requirements. You say. He leaned forward slightly. You seem to have some misunderstanding about me. I don't have the dirty habit of supporting someone. I want you to be my girlfriend. Are you kidding? I couldn't believe my ears. He is clearly a playboy who changes his female companion every 3 months, but he pretends to be innocent in front of me. Seeing me hesitate, Kwang Jing lowered his eyes and lazily turned his phone around, saying the same thing to me. I am just proposing my conditions. Of course you can refuse, but I will take back my loan. My heart tightened, and I remembered the pale face of the dean lying on the hospital bed when he first suffered a coronary heart attack. Okay, I finally agreed. 5. We agreed to be available at any time, and soon Kwang Jing asked me to meet him at the gymnasium. After I entered, I found a random seat and sat down. When I looked up, I saw Kwang Jing jumping up and dunking. He was wearing a loose short-sleeved white t-shirt and black sports shorts. When he jumped up, the corners of his clothes flew up, revealing half of his tight waistline. Good shot. Applause broke out all around. After landing, he turned around and ran back, and our eyes met from a distance. Kwang Jing stopped and wiped his sweat, then raised his chin towards me and said, "Classmate, can you pass me a bottle of water?" I stood up and took out a bottle of water from my bag, which he had specifically asked me to buy on WeChat, and walked over to hand it to him. The other people who were playing ball looked over in the direction of the sound. Someone whistled immediately, and someone else smiled meaningfully. "Wow, Kwang Jing, you are so lucky again. Is this beauty a newcomer?" Before I could react, Kwang Jing kicked me and yelled, "Are you calling me beauty? Call me sister-in-law." I was a little surprised that he would make it public. At the same time, I feel an indescribable shame about the word sister-in-law, as if a child is pretending to be an adult. The person who was kicked quickly changed his words. Others also noticed something. In their circle, girlfriend and lover are two different identities. They exchanged glances, and the nonchalant attitude on their faces changed noticeably. Kwang Jing walked over and lowered his head and asked, "I asked you to come and watch me play basketball, but why are you hiding so far away?" I didn't say anything and just stuffed the water into his arms. Kwang Jing's expression was calm. "Help me twist it." I just bumped my finger. Immediately afterwards, mischievous boos came one after another. "Oh, Jingji is pretending to be weak. So brother Jing is like this in front of his sister-in-law." Although Kwang Jing didn't show any expression, his eyes were drooping and he looked aggrieved. "That's enough." I glared at him and said in a low voice, then unscrewed the bottle cap for him. Kwang Jing laughed. He then took it and tilted his head back to drink the water, with drops of water sliding down the corners of his lips and into his collar. "Hey." I quickly pressed a tissue against his chest. "What are you doing? It's all spilled." As soon as I finished speaking, Kwang Jing grabbed my wrist and pulled me forward, and my hand touched his slightly wet clothes. Seeing that the situation was not right, the others consciously went back to continue playing. He lowered his head with a smile, and whispered to the tip of his ear, "Have you touched enough? Do you want to lift it up and take a look?" My face flushed. I retracted my fingers as if I had received an electric shock, and subconsciously shouted, "Kwang Jing." This sentence doesn't sound like a scolding, but more like an act of coquettishness. I quickly stopped talking and glared at him, then met his triumphant smile. It's that familiar rogue face again. It makes me feel upset when I see it. "Where's the agreed 200,000? When will you transfer the money to me?" I said coldly. Kwang Jing's smile disappeared. He looked at me dimly. "Are you so short of money?" 6. After getting the money, I took the dean to the hospital for a physical examination as soon as possible. The dean was diagnosed with coronary heart disease a month earlier than in his previous life, so he was able to be hospitalized immediately and arranged for surgery. The director held my hand and trembled. His face was pale and his eyes were red as he said, Wei, what should I do?" "The operation will cost more than 200,000 yuan. How can I afford that much money?" I put my arm around her shoulders, stroked her hands, and said, "Don't worry, Dean Mama, I have money." The dean turned to look at me in surprise and asked, "You are still in school. Where did you get the money?" "I won a prize from a big computer competition. The finals are in Beijing. I'm going to take a leave of absence to attend the competition the week of your surgery. I'll be able to pay off the surgery fee when I come back." This is the most reasonable explanation I can think of. In my previous life, I was indeed shortlisted for this competition, but I didn't dare to take a leave from my job at that time, so I missed the competition. The dean's eyes lit up, but then became filled with worry. "That's not that much. As long as you make it to the finals, you can get at least 200,000 yuan. The big company also gives you a signing bonus." I took out my phone and quickly searched the news from previous years. Look, the senior who won the award last year went straight to this big company after graduation. In fact, the news on this page was 5 years ago. And there are no such large bonuses now. But the dean was presbyopic and couldn't see the words clearly. She just stroked the photo of the young man in a suit on the screen, and finally smiled. Our Weiwei has a promising future. Studying is really useful. If she knew that the child she was so proud of not only often skipped classes in his previous life, but also had terrible final grades and was almost on probation, but was eventually murdered, ending his short and miserable life, would she be disappointed? My eyes instantly turned red and I quickly lowered my head and pretended to look at the electrocardiogram. At the same time, long-term plans also emerge in mind. This time I have to participate in the competition throughout and get the prize money to cover the subsequent treatment costs. At the same time, I cannot fall behind in my professional courses in school to ensure that I can enter a large company after graduation. Just as I was thinking about it, my phone suddenly vibrated. I stared at the caller ID "Dear Husband" on my phone for a few seconds. Then I remembered that Guangjing forced me to change this before I left last time. What a bad taste. I walked to the stairwell and heard his lazy voice. Accompany me to the exhibition this weekend. Not on the weekend. I have to accompany my mother to the hospital for treatment. The other party was silent for a few seconds, then asked, which hospital? I'll arrange for a doctor I'm familiar with to go see your mother. No, it's already been arranged. I slowed down my tone. How about next week? Guangjing sneered. Su Wei, I am your creditor now. You are not qualified to bargain. I looked at my reflection in the glass window. My face was pale but still attractive. So, as a girlfriend, can I request a date extension? Boyfriend, there was a sound of something falling over the phone. The identity that I refused to acknowledge until my death in my previous life has now become my most convenient weapon. As expected, when Guangjing spoke again, his voice was tense. Forget it, this won't happen again. When I hung up the phone, I couldn't help laughing. It's easy to coax him too. It's just a girlfriend or something, you can't trust her. 7. On the day I had an appointment with Guangjing, in order to avoid being recognized by people at school, I got up early and dressed up. I braided my hair, put on a beret, and baggy overalls, and finally covered most of my face with a pair of big sunglasses. When we arrived at the agreed location, Guangjing's expression froze for a moment when he saw me. What kind of outfit is this, little painter? I pushed my sunglasses up to ensure they wouldn't slip down. Doesn't it look good? The main reason is that there are so many people at the exhibition and there's a chance that someone from our school might recognize it. Guangjing laughed. It looks good, but don't regret it in a moment. I'm still wondering what there is to regret. But when I went in, I saw that everyone was dressed up in jewelry and I became the odd one out. I thought today was an art exhibition or a photography exhibition. But it turned out to be a gaozhu exhibition. I didn't explain my anger clearly, but I felt relieved again. I probably wouldn't meet my classmates here. After we sat down, the salesperson quickly brought over a batch of jewelry. Guangjing pointed at me and said, "See if there is a style that suits her." The salesperson looked at me hesitantly, apologetically. "I'm sorry, Mr. Guang. We don't have any styles suitable for children at the moment." I felt my face getting hot instantly. Guangjing was also at a loss for words, and reached out to take off my sunglasses. "She is my daughter. I'm an adult." I interrupted him quickly, stopping his movements, lowering my head to hold my sunglasses, and doing it in one go. "But I don't like any of these styles. Please take them all off." Guangjing's face turned cold instantly. As soon as the salesperson left, he asked with a stern face, "What do you mean? You don't want me to say you are my girlfriend?" I was a little helpless. "I am just your contracted girlfriend. There is no need to make it public. What if I run into someone you know here?" Guangjing sneered. "You are considerate." After saying that, he suddenly stood up and walked out. I hurriedly chased after him and grabbed his arm. Before I could say anything, someone greeted me. Xiaozheng, the middle-aged man who was walking towards him, looked at Guangjing with a smile. "What a coincidence, we meet here." I looked at this person silently, as if I had seen him somewhere. In a flash, an impression suddenly flashed through my mind. Isn't this the CFO Zhou Zhenhai who caused the bankruptcy of Quang Group in the previous life due to financial fraud, hiding debts, and inflating profits? Guangjing's address further confirmed my guess. "Uncle Zhou, is the company not busy recently?" "I'm not busy, so I took some time to accompany the one at home to pick out some jewelry. What about you? Did you bring your girlfriend with you?" Zhou Zhenhai asked with a smile. Guangjing curled his lips and smiled a little fakely. "She's just a junior." My mind moved slightly, and I quickly took his arm. "Uncle Zhou, he is joking. I am Guangjing's girlfriend." She pretended to be innocent and smiled shyly. I have long admired Uncle Zhou's insights in the field of digital transformation. "My name is Su Wei. and I majored in computer science. This year, I was shortlisted for the finals of the college student competition. I hope to get an internship opportunity at Kwang's company after winning the championship. Originally, Zhou Zhenhai didn't need to bother with a small person like me. It was just because of Kwang Jing that he put on a friendly smile. Young people are really to be feared. Since Ms. Su has the ability to enter the finals and is Xiao Jing's girlfriend, it must not be difficult for her to enter the company. As he spoke, Zhou Zhenhai took out a business card from the inside pocket of his suit. We are currently building an intelligent financial system that needs talent. If Ms. Su wins an award, you can contact me at any time. I held the business card in my hand, my face full of surprise. I heard that Kwang's company offers 5-digit salaries to interns. I'm really looking forward to it. After Zhou Zhenhai left, I carefully analyzed the conversation. The smart financial system he mentioned may be closely related to future data tampering. I have just revealed that what I am after is money. I don't know whether Zhou Zhenhai will use me in the future. If I can prevent the Kwang group from going bankrupt, it would mean that I have repaid the favor of Kwang Jing, who avenged me in my previous life. Just as I was thinking about it, I heard Kwang Jing sneer. Su Wei, you are awesome. Didn't you want to make it public just now? Why, you changed your mind once you saw Zhou Zhenhai. Su Wei, when you took the money, you didn't say you would include my connections in the calculation. 8. Kwang Jing was angry and didn't contact me for several days. I was busy preparing for the competition. The final was a team competition. I had joined the team that won the first prize in the national team competition in my previous life. I applied for a laboratory from the school and built models with them every day. He didn't call me, and I was happy to save time. After coming out of the laboratory, I went to the cafeteria to buy food and finally returned to the dormitory. As soon as the door was opened, 3 heads popped out from behind the bed curtains. The food is here. Oh my god, Wei Wei, you are so kind. The 3 women screamed, jumped out of bed, rushed towards me, and snatched the food from my hands. Thank you for your hard work. Thank you for your hard work. The meal money has been sent to the group. Wei Wei, remember to collect it. In my previous life, in order to save money, I did not choose to live in the school dormitory. Instead, I lived in a staff dormitory outside the school, and I didn't know almost any of my classmates at school. As a result, when rumors spread that I spent a night with Kwang Jing and bought a Chanel bag, my classmates only whispered when they saw me and no one believed me. One time before class, I heard a few men and women in front of me discussing why I had a Chanel bag and still carried a canvas bag every day. A boy showed an unfathomable expression. You don't understand this. A canvas bag can attract more men. Chanel is for accompanying clients at night. How can you carry it during the day? TSK. It's possible. They suddenly realized. I sat in the back and was shaking with anger. So after my rebirth, I decisively chose to return to school and live there. This is also the reason why I don't want people at school to see me meeting Kwang Jing. At 6:30 in the evening, the 4 of us went out on time. Why do we have to attend evening self-study classes in our junior year? I'm so fed up, Xia Xue complained. Junjun agreed like a little chicken pecking at rice. That's right, I was quite happy, after all. I had many part-time jobs before and rarely had such a leisurely time to attend evening self-study classes. Huizi suddenly thought of something, turned around and asked me seriously, Wei Wei, has Kwang Jing looked for you recently? The report of what happened at the school gate that day spread throughout the school, and the 3 of them were no exception, so I spent a few minutes talking about my dinner with Kwang Jing, and frankly said that I had agreed to be Kwang Jing's girlfriend. It just concealed the fact that I borrowed 200,000 yuan. I was afraid of leaving them with the same impression I had in my past life, although now I really am after Kwang Jing's money. When you were away, the 3 of us discussed it carefully and we still want to remind you to be safe. Will a young man like Kwang Jing really have a healthy relationship with you? Huizi said solemnly. Yes. Junjun frowned. Her family was the best among the 4 of us. My parents took me to some places, and I met Kwang Jing there a few times. Although he looked quite impressive, few rich and handsome men would remain chaste. I heard that he was into cigarettes, alcohol and women in private. I feel a little guilty. This relationship is indeed unhealthy. It is just a transaction of money. As he was talking, Junjun suddenly pointed to the front and said, Hey, isn't that Kwang Jing? Why is his hand on a girl's shoulder? I looked over and saw Kwang Jing holding a girl and walking towards the school gate, saying something. The girl had big wavy hair and was wearing a mask, with smiling eyes. Xia Xue was furious. I'm going to kill this bastard. I was also a little surprised. After getting it, did Kwang Jing get tired of it so quickly? but I quickly stopped Xiaoxue, who wanted to rush over to question her. And Jinjun and Huizi also advised her to calm down. Let's go to class first, it's too late. As if he heard something, Quangjing looked back, wondering if he saw us. After sitting down in the classroom, Xiaoxue crossed her arms and said coldly, "You shouldn't have stopped me just now. I should have punched him in the head. He is my creditor. I can't bully him." I could only force a smile and say, "Maybe there's some misunderstanding. I'll ask him later." Junjun pouted. Not only did he get a great deal on a beauty like Weiwei, but he even dared to put his arm around other girls in public. Xiaoxue exhaled slowly and said, "Weiwei, you have to spend his money ruthlessly. Don't save money for him." What? Give him at least one of the two, money or love. Let him transfer 30,000 or 50,000 yuan to let me see his strength. Junjun and Huizi also nodded. I didn't expect to hear such words. I was stunned and lowered my head to ask softly, "Won't this make me look like a materialist? Tisk, if not money, what else do you worship? Are you asking him not to leave you?" Xiaoxue said with disdain. The dean called me on video before going to bed. I wanted to show some concern for her, but I laughed out loud when I opened my mouth. "You're in a good mood. What happy thing happened today?" she asked with a smile. I curled my lips and said, "I made some good friends at school." 9. The WeChat message asking for information was never sent. I secretly thought that Quangjing would never give up. After all, he pursued me so fiercely in my previous life, but I didn't hear from Quangjing for several days in a row, and I tossed and turned in bed in the early morning. Yes, why was I so confident that Quangjing would always like me? Maybe you didn't really like me in your previous life. It was just an obsession. But is this obsession worth his death for me? This night is destined to be sleepless. But I didn't expect that Quangjing would come to block me at the entrance of the teaching building the next day. When I walked towards him, he looked at me sinisterly, gnashing his teeth and saying, "Su Wei, it's really hard for you to coax people." I was speechless for a few seconds and apologized honestly. I was wrong last time. What did you do wrong?" Quangjing was so angry that he ruffled my hair. "Forget it. I'm in a good mood today, so I won't bother with you." Quangjing took my hand and said, "Come with me." As a result, he took many turns and drove the car directly to the door of a villa. There were two people standing in front of the door. The man was clearly Quan Xinghong, the president of Quan Group, who often appeared in the news. The woman next to him turned out to be the big wavy beauty that Quangjing embraced that day. She turned out to be Quangjing's mother. Quangjing pulled me out of the car, and I was completely stunned. What kind of operation is this? How can I meet my parents directly? I had to force a smile and greet them. "Good evening, uncle and aunt." Mother Quan held my hands and said, "Weiwei is here. Are you hungry after class? Come in quickly. The yam and pork ribs your uncle cooked tonight look delicious. I wonder if it suits your appetite." My arms tensed instantly. Quangjing noticed it and pulled my hand away with a smile. "Mom, don't scare her." "Oh, you protect me very well." Quang's mother glared at him, but there was no sign of anger on her face. Instead, she smiled more kindly. Quang Xinghong laughed loudly, put his arm around Quang's mother's shoulders, and led her to the door. "Come in quickly. If you don't come in, how can Weiwei have the nerve to go in first?" After everyone was seated, Mother Quan kept putting food into my bowl and asked me about my taste preferences from time to time. Quang Xinghong does not look as serious as he appears in the news. Instead, he looks like a naughty boy, and his mother is even more gentle as water. During the meal, even though I had no idea about the etiquette of being a guest at the elder's home, they did not show the slightest displeasure. I thought I would be subjected to comprehensive questioning from Quangjing's parents, but I did not expect to be completely integrated into their family conversation. When I heard gossip about relatives that I didn't understand, Quang's mother would explain it to me. Just asking about my parents' health and learning that I grew up in an orphanage, Mother Quang walked around half the dining table and gave me a tight hug, stroking my back with her warm hands. "Good boy. It must have been hard to get through these years." I stood rigid, my vision blurring out as I looked at the family portrait on the opposite wall. When he was a child, Quangjing was wearing a fencing suit and holding a trophy, with his parents standing on both sides smiling proudly. That kind of pure happiness was like a mirror, reflecting my scholarship application form that I could never fill out. Growing up in such a family atmosphere, it is no wonder that Quangjing has developed such a confident and outspoken personality. It was almost 10 o'clock when Quangjing sent me back to school. I remained silent on the way back to the dormitory. As I was walking, someone grabbed my wrist. Quangjing looked down at me and for the first time, his voice sounded cautious. "Are you blaming me?" To be honest, I don't blame him. I said I would fulfill my girlfriend's duties and be there whenever you call, regardless of the occasion. I'm just curious why you want to bring me to meet your parents, even though we just met. Kwang Jing was silent for a few seconds, then squatted down. Come up. What? I was afraid you'd run away. The street lights shone on his back, outlining the broad, straight lines like a reliable ship. I somehow got on top of him and put my arms around his neck. He stood up steadily and walked down the road with me on his back. The voice spread from the chest to the spine, and it returned to its usual arrogance. If I don't block you today, are you going to avoid me for the rest of your life? No, it's obviously you who is throwing a tantrum, I stammered guiltily. Don't think I don't know that you ran faster than a mouse when you saw me hugging my mom that day. Why did you run? He laughed, his Adam's apple trembling slightly beside my arm. You thought I was cheating on you, and as your official girlfriend, you didn't even dare to come up and slap me. I felt like laughing. How could I be considered a real girlfriend? He suddenly lifted me up, and I was so scared that I hugged his neck tightly. So now I'm going to put a stamp on it. Let my parents know about your existence. Let everyone in the school see clearly who your girlfriend is. And tell those who want to steal your girlfriend to get the hell away from me. The most important thing is to let your stubborn head see clearly that I am serious about you being my girlfriend. This is not a contractual girlfriend, and I am not just throwing money at you for fun. I opened my lips. I was used to Kwang Jing's explicit confessions in my previous life, so I interrupted him every time, which made him even more annoyed. Only this time, I could hear the affection and seriousness in his tone. A thought arose in my heart. Su Wei, just accept this inexplicable love. There will be no next life to miss it. 10. Kwang Jing and I are 1 year apart. Kwang Jing is in the stage of preparing his thesis and doing internship, and usually does not live in school, so we only met when he called me. But from that day on, the relationship between us changed qualitatively. Kwang Jing picked me up from school every day, and occasionally accompanied me in the lab to prepare for competitions. I no longer avoided walking side by side with him in school or having meals with him in the cafeteria, and I no longer refused to accept his red envelopes and gifts. As the competition approached, I had a meal with my teammates and wished them all the best. I drank 2 glasses of fruit wine during the meal. When Kwang Jing came to pick me up, my cheeks were already hot and my eyes were a little dazed. Kwang Jing held my waist with one hand, and said with a faint smile, Su Wei, do you still recognize who I am? I am your man. It sounds so familiar. I might be able to hold it in when I'm sober, but I really can't when I'm drunk. This time I can finally spit out, bah, I don't have a man. Kwang Jing held me tighter and laughed, with a hint of ruffian in his laughter, like a stubborn donkey. Because the restaurant was near the school, Kwang Jing parked the car at the door and walked with me back to school. The street lights cast the silhouettes of falling leaves on the wall. I was lowering my head and stepping on the fallen leaves when Kwang Jing suddenly grabbed my wrist. Look at the wall. I turned my head and saw our overlapping shadows there. He moved closer to me, so close that the ends of my hair could brush against his eyebrows. Look, do the shadows look like they are kissing? I looked again and it was clearly overlapping. Not 2 complete shadows at all. Nonsense. I turned my head to argue, but bumped into his face, which was so close to me. When my lips touched the warmth, the wind stopped. All I could smell was a faint scent of cedar on him, mixed with the aroma of the plum wine I had just drunk. We're kissing now. Kwang Jing raised the corners of his lips triumphantly, with my lipstick mark still on his lips. I stepped back in a hurry, but my lower back hit his prepared arm. You did it on purpose. Yeah, I did it on purpose. He held my hand, intertwined our fingers, and continued walking forward. I was led by him for a few steps. A bitter taste rose up my throat, along with the questions that I hadn't asked when I was sober. I let out a deep breath. Did you get along with the girls you were with before in the same way? Kwang Jing was confused and turned to look at me. What do you mean by this? I lowered my head. Nothing. Kwang Jing lifted my chin and looked me in the eye. You seem to have a lot of misunderstandings about me. Why not ask me directly? Before I could say anything, he answered my question. I have never put any effort into pursuing other girls, so I won't be like this when I'm with them. I muttered, have quite a lot of love experience. Kwang Jing was amused. Are you jealous? I don't know. I just wanted to scratch Kwang Jing, so I actually grabbed his hand and started scratching it. Suddenly I heard him say, you can't expect someone who has never been in love to be good at it. I have been in love many times, but you have to know that I also have a lot of experience in love. He lowered his head and held my hand that was tickling him. I have 10,000 ways to love you now. My heart moved, then his drowsy brain became clear for a moment and he shook his head again. No, the way you love is wrong. 11. Quang Jing was stunned, but I said calmly, you offered me 30,000 yuan to have dinner with you the first time we met, you flirted with me in public at the gym to test my limits, and you even met my parents without consulting me in advance. I can understand these, but I don't agree with them. Perhaps you are used to using money to solve everything. Or perhaps many people came for your money, so you think that on the day of the report, you pay the money and I provide the people. This is just right, right? Quang Jing shook his head, his voice a little hoarse. No, I'm sorry, if I reject you, you will be shocked and furious. How could a girl in this world reject your money? Quang Jing tried to refute. I didn't. You did, I said firmly. Unfortunately, I really lack money in this life. And I succumbed, therefore. This relationship has been unequal and unfair from the beginning. You and I must be in a relationship dependent on money. Our relationship must have a price tag. Most importantly, my voluntary behavior under the pressure of survival is not true freedom of choice at all. Quang Jing's grip on my hand kept tightening, and his Adam's apple rolled rapidly. What I am talking about are topics that his circle has never touched upon or thought about. But what I want is for you to bend down and look at me with equal eyes. I touched the corner of his stiff lips with red eyes. Like now, you will panic because of my tears. You will be at a loss for what to do because of my words. Instead of always being able to easily settle everything with money, money can't buy my love, but respect can. Suddenly, I remembered the scene in front of the KTV at 5 in the morning in my previous life. At that time, Quang Jing seemed to have learned to respect. I just missed it, but it doesn't matter. Quang Jing will understand it earlier in this life, because he bent down, rested his head on my shoulder, his chest against my chest, and the violent beating of our hearts seemed like some kind of swearing ceremony. 12. Because I was drunk, I was a little late when I arrived at the classroom the next day. As soon as I sat down in the seat my roommates reserved for me, I heard whispers of discussions from the front row, which drilled into my ears like a poisonous snake spitting out its tongue. I guess he was sent back by that guy again. I heard he comes back very late every day. I heard she was working part-time. It seems like she worked several jobs a day during her college years. You believe this? Didn't you see how much the shoes she's wearing cost? And the car she drove last time was a Porsche. TSK. It's hard to say what kind of part-time job she has. Xiaoxue suddenly threw the book on the table, and the thermos fell to the ground. The loud bang made the classroom quiet instantly. She stared at the two boys in front of her. Why are you talking so excitedly? Are you sharing your experience in treating hemorrhoids? You. The boy's face suddenly turned red. Junjun patted the Saint Laurent tote bag in front of her and said, are you making a fuss about a pair of shoes worth thousands of dollars? The drawstring of my bag is enough to buy all your clothes. If you ask me, instead of staring at your female classmates' shoes, why don't you change your torn socks first? There were bursts of suppressed laughter in the classroom. Another boy stiffened his neck. Why are you pretending to be a rich and beautiful girl? You are still a hangout. Speaking of defamation. Huizi picked up her phone and read aloud in a stiff tone. The criminal law stipulates that if someone openly insults others or fabricates facts to defame others, and the circumstances are serious, he shall be sentenced to fixed-term imprisonment of not more than 3 years. The surveillance cameras in the classroom have a recording function. Now we can call the police and collect evidence. Now all the students dared not say a word. Don't. The boy pressed Huizi's phone hard, his hands shaking. Can we apologize? Sorry. I stared blankly at the 3 girls who were standing up for me, and thought of myself in my previous life who was condemned by thousands of people. It turns out that the feeling of being protected by friends is like suddenly entering a hot spring in the cold winter, making your eyes wet. After class, Quang Jing called to pick me up. Xiaoxue grabbed the phone and answered, Mr. Quang, your girlfriend was bullied in the classroom. After I got in the car, Quang Jing put his hands on the steering wheel and drove for a while before asking, tell me, what happened just now? Were you bullied? Fine. I paused, then told him everything. Someone was talking about the two of us, and they said something unpleasant. Then repeat to him what the 2 people said. Who said that? Bring your man to meet him. His face was cold and hard, as if he was going to kill the person who spread the rumor. I quickly touched his hand to comfort him. It's only natural for me to spend money on my girlfriend. Besides, who would be so aggrieved to have a girlfriend who doesn't like to spend money? She's like a eunuch who visits brothels, with money but no use. I was amused by his strange metaphor. 13. I was going to Beijing to participate in a competition this time, and Quang Jing sent me directly to the airport. After reuniting with my teammates, I waved goodbye to Quang Jing. Before the plane took off, I had a video call with the dean. I promised her that I would come back with the bonus on the day of her surgery, just like in the previous life. Our team still won the first prize with our excellent work. My personal points ranked first, and I received olive branches from many big companies present, but I only have one company in mind. Zhou Zhenhai, as the company representative, came on stage to present the award and handed the crystal trophy to me. Congratulations, Sue. The internship offer from Kwon Group will be sent to your email soon. I would also like to thank Mr. Zhou for the opportunity. I raised the trophy to block the live camera. I am very interested in your company's intelligent financial system construction. On the return flight, I repeatedly stroked my bank card. Soon, 30,000 yuan would be deposited into the card, enough to support the dean's next operation, the moment the red light in the operating room went out. The surgeon took off his mask and smiled, which made me burst into tears as I threw myself into the arms of the awakening dean. The smell of disinfectant mixed with the saltiness of tears was the breath of life. For the first time since my rebirth, I felt that my destiny was in my own hands, so I made a decision. After Kwang Jing came to visit the dean, he was worried that I wouldn't get enough rest, so he booked a room in the hotel opposite the hospital. I curled up on the sofa and looked up Zhou Zhenhai's biography on the computer. The bathroom door opened, and Kwang Jing came out wiping his hair, with water droplets sliding down his abdominal muscles into the bath towel around his waist. He came over and took my hand. Let me test my recent fitness results. Seeing that the atmosphere was getting bad, I quickly held his wrist. Why, don't you miss me? He smiled and kissed the side of my face, his minty breath sweeping through my hair. My heart was beating a little faster. Kwang Jing, if I say I died once, would you believe me? He paused and blinked his wet eyelashes. What nightmares have you had recently? Next May, I was murdered on my way to my part-time job. 2 months later, you avenged me and then committed suicide in front of my grave. I touched his ribs. I was floating in front of you at the time and watched you die with my own eyes. His body temperature was transmitted to my fingertips, and I seemed to be able to clearly feel the non-existent scar. Kwang Jing's expression gradually froze, his Adam's apple rolling up and down. Where was I when you got into trouble? 14. He believed it so quickly that I was a little caught off guard. Before I got into trouble, your family had already gone bankrupt and was being besieged by creditors. I looked at the mist in his eyes. So don't blame yourself. The most important thing you need to know is that it was Zhou Zhenhai's financial fraud, hiding debts, and inflating profits that led to the bankruptcy of the Kwon Group. I said, I applied for the winter vacation internship at Kwon's Group and have received the offer. Zhou Zhenhai has agreed to let me work on the intelligent financial system construction project. I can use scripts to analyze the underlying data of the system, but if I want to retrieve the log of the modification record, I still need your permission. Kwang Jing suppressed his emotions and looked serious. Zhou Zhenhai gave up a high salary in the United States and joined the newly established Kwon Group. He attracted a lot of investment for Kwon Group. My father trusted him very much and gave him a lot of power. In other words, Zhou Zhenhai can make full decisions on budget approval and fund allocation without going through my father's hands. We both realized the complexity of the matter, and it was far from being solved just by knowing who the culprit was. Moreover, data retrieved without authorization may not be accepted by the judiciary due to procedural violations. Kwang Jing pondered for a moment, and finally said, I will discuss this matter with my father, but I am afraid that Zhou Zhenhai has not made any move yet. My father can only keep an eye on him for the time being. I still have to rely on you to compare whether there are any abnormal transaction patterns in the system. I don't know how Kwang Jing can convince Kwang Jinghong to be on guard against Zhou Zhenhai without revealing my rebirth. When I entered the company as an intern, it was the busiest month for annual reviews. I worked with the project team for a month and finally waited for Zhou Zhenhai to meet me alone. After he called me to his office, he casually asked me, Xiao Su, how is your relationship with Xiao Jing lately? Is it going well? In order to avoid suspicion, I deliberately did not let Kwang Jing pick me up and drop me off at Get Off Work. It seems that Zhou Zhenhai has been misunderstood. I smiled and said, we broke up a long time ago. You know Kwang Jing, he changes people faster than he changes cars. Not sad. Zhou Zhenhai's eyes flashed with a shrewdness. I looked relaxed. Oh, there's nothing to be sad about. Besides, I got a lot of things. After saying that, I pretended to be happy just thinking about it, and I smiled even more brightly. Zhou Zhenhai also smiled, looking nonchalant, and changed the subject naturally. The marketing department needs to compare the transaction data of overseas subsidiaries in the past 3 years, and we need your help to process it. This is considered as extra work for you, so don't worry. We will give you a big red envelope before the new year, remember? Zhou Zhenhai raised his eyes. If anyone asks, just say you are sorting out expense reimbursement documents. I showed an understanding expression and immediately bowed. Thank you, Mr. Zhou, for your trust. He turned around with a smile, his palms full of cold sweat. Zhou Zhenhai began to act. 15. I provided the system data, and Guangjing also collected sufficient external physical evidence. What happens next is not something I can interfere with. It is said that Guang Jinghong urgently convened a closed-door meeting of the audit committee, avoiding Zhou Zhenhai's attendance, and launched an internal investigation. At the same time, a legal forensic team was hired to submit a complete chain of evidence to the Economic Investigation Department. Eventually Zhou Zhenhai was arrested and imprisoned. After this incident, my internship ended. My teammates who participated in the competition planned to start their own business and invited me, so I joined. During this period, the director's second operation went smoothly. The doctor said that as long as he took the medicine every day, the possibility of recurrence was very small. Everything is settled. When I graduated, I paid back 210,000 yuan to Guangjing including principal and interest. Guangjing did not refuse, but instead heaved a sigh of relief. Damn it, this deal is finally over. He took my hand and tried to kiss me. Baby, now we are both free. Come and kiss me. My mind was racing and my hands were flailing around involuntarily. With a bang, Guangjing was stunned. This was the first slap he had ever received in his life. I almost forgot to give it to him. Guangjing was shocked and angry. You. I pinched his face and pressed my lips against his. You can kiss me now. End of text. Extra. Previous life situation. 1. No one believes in love at first sight anymore. Guangjing didn't believe it either. So when he saw Su Wei at the school gate, he handed out a credit card through the car window without thinking. In his mind, love and affection are all empty words. He never lacks, but is also stingy in giving. Only real money can exchange for real beauty. But Su Wei really stumped him. She wanted nothing but dignity. Su Wei said that he only liked her face, not her as a person, and she needed the minimum dignity as a human being. So no matter whether Guangjing was gentle or persistent towards her, whether he invited her to dinner or bought her gifts, she refused them all. It nearly drove him crazy. A friend advised him, this woman is stubborn and needs to be punished. Wait for me to find someone to punish her. I guarantee she will come to you and beg you. Guangjing pushed him away irritably, holding the wine glass, his eyelids drooping casually. His sight fell on the first floor of the bar. Suddenly, a figure moved among the crowd. Guangjing put the wine glass on the table and strode downstairs to chase after him. It was not until he grabbed the person's wrist and pulled her in front of him that Guangjing realized that this girl looked 80% similar to Su Wei. Even their height, figure, and body shape were very similar. But it wasn't Su Wei after all. He suddenly understood. It has to be her. It can only be her. He likes this person, regardless of anything external or internal. What kind of love was this? Guangjing himself was not sure, too, but before he could sort out his feelings, his family was on the verge of bankruptcy. Later, Guangjing also harassed me, and every time I scolded him, I gritted my teeth and I once thought he would hit me. Or, either this person is busy today, or that person will refuse tomorrow. At a party, even those who used to be fawning and bowing to him and often asked him to do things for them dared to fight with him in public, and were beaten by him so badly that they could not get up. At 5 o'clock in the morning, Guangjing walked out of the door holding his breath. I just happened to see Su Wei, who was so tired that she was sitting at the door of the KTV and sleeping. He stood in front of her and looked at her for a long time. It was very cold and she was shivering even in her sleep. It's all like this. Why are you still unwilling to accept his money? Thinking of this, Guangjing woke her up. When I looked down at her, she looked small and fragile. He frowned slightly, somewhat unwilling to see such a scene, so he squatted down and looked at her at eye level so that he could see her eyes clearly. After that, in order to solve the mess at home, Guangjing never looked for Su Wei again. The next time we heard from her, she had been murdered. 3. Originally, Guangjing also wanted to take formal channels to bring the criminals to justice, but he came to the cemetery every day to inquire, only to find out that in the past week, no one except him had come to visit Su Wei, but the girl he liked just died. Guangjing's eyes felt very sore, so not long after, he raised his knife and came to Su Wei's grave. It was the first time he saw her smile at him. What a beautiful smile. Guangjing took off the ring on his hand and placed it in front of her tombstone. This was the day he came of age. And his parents melted their engagement rings into a new ring as a coming-of-age gift for him. They said, "Thank you for being our child." Now, he gave her the ring. I wish she has parents by her side and a lover who loves and respects her, and they may never see each other again, maybe see you in the next life. Story 2. I died 7 times. Each time, I died on the day my husband proposed divorce. He didn't love me. Our 7-year marriage crumbled in the face of his returning first love. The system told me that if I wanted to live, I had to outdo the first love. Miscarriage, being a stand-in, framing. My methods became increasingly vicious. However, when this path was finally approaching its end and the success rate of saving my marriage reached 99%, I took the initiative to hand over the divorce agreement. 1. When signing the divorce agreement for the 7th time, a needle-like numbness suddenly spread from the tips of my fingers. Gu Jingshan looked out of the window and urged indifferently, "Jiangwan is waiting." He was even too stingy to look at me again. He didn't know that every second I delayed was borrowing time from death. I coughed softly, extremely weak from the miscarriage. I spoke in a very soft tone. "Is there really no room for change? I've said that I can accept you having another family outside, or Jiangwan can be the de facto legitimate wife. I can go abroad, go anywhere. Just don't divorce me." I looked up at him, my eyes hot, my lips trembling slightly. "I love you, Jingshan." I had said these words countless times in countless tones, but never once managed to move a man who didn't love me. Gu Jingshan lowered his eyes and looked at me, with only a glimmer of pity in his eyes. "Shinjiaoyi, stop pestering me." Success rate of saving the marriage, 29%. The words of the system appeared in front of my eyes again. A sharp pain burst in my heart without warning. I clutched the bedsheet tightly, my face pale, and pleaded incoherently. The child, for the sake of the child, I carried her for 5 months. Our child had already taken shape. Gu Kanwen pushed me down. Just 1 day ago, she was still safely in my belly, my most well-behaved daughter, who never gave her mother any trouble, my only unborn family member. "How long are you going to make up stories? Kangwen said that you fell by yourself," and my husband watched coldly. He couldn't see my pain. Now there was only an eternal void in my abdomen. 72%. "The alimony I give you is enough to ensure that you have no worries about food and clothing for the rest of your life." Gu Jingshan lowered his voice and made a cruel conclusion about my miscarriage. "It's a good thing for her not to have to grow up in a family without love. Besides, her mother is such a shameless woman." I looked at him with red eyes, having no more tears to shed, and he picked up the divorce agreement. The obsidian cufflinks glinted coldly. "Those were the gift I gave him on our wedding anniversary." Perhaps he had long forgotten. I murmured in a low voice, "I've already lost the child, and she's going to take away my husband. She doesn't know about this." Gu Jingshan's face suddenly turned stern. "If you dare to tell her." Yes, if Jiangwan knew about this, as kind as she was, she would definitely be ashamed, blame herself, and cry her eyes out, making him extremely heartbroken. She was clearly the shameless mistress. 1%. The numbness in my fingertips had spread throughout my body. I reached out to grab his sleeve but missed. I rolled off the bed and fell with a loud thud. The throbbing pain in my heart became more and more intense. I curled up in pain, my temples soaked with cold sweat, unable to say a single word. "Don't imitate her when she has an episode." Gu Jingshan's voice seemed to come from another world. This man I loved deeply had obvious disgust in his tone. The tip of his shoe was only half a step away from my twitching fingers, yet without the slightest hesitation, he strode away briskly. 0%. That row of blood-red numbers trembled violently for a moment and then returned to 0. I struggled to crawl towards the French window, my nails breaking, leaving streaks of blood on the carpet. Through the window, I saw my husband walking towards another woman. He slightly lowered his head, his eyes full of gentle attachment. The sunlight left a halo on the iris. This was the last scene. My vision darkened, and I waited for death to come. Last time it was carbon monoxide poisoning. The time before that was a car accident. This time it was probably death from a broken heart. I had personally proven 7 times the fate of dying a violent death if I divorced Gu Jingshan. 2. When I opened my eyes again, unsurprisingly, I was lying on the marital bed with Gu Jingshan. The curtains were tightly closed, and the room was dim. The bedside clock showed April 20th, Wednesday, 15:10. "I'm back again." I silently recited the system data in my heart, and a line of white characters appeared in front of my eyes. Success rate of saving the marriage, 33%. I picked up my phone listlessly, unlocked the screen, and browsed my mailbox and social accounts. In the chat box with Gu Jingshan, there were only my one-sided greetings. As for my social account for 7 years, I used it to post daily life and random thoughts that no one cared about. It was just a product of loneliness, and only one zombie follower would like each post, but this was better than confiding in my husband, who was like a valley without an echo. In the latest post, I recorded going to Kyoto to visit a retired craftsman to customize cufflinks for Gu Jingshan. In the post, I couldn't hide my excitement. After all, that was his favorite craftsman. He liked them so much that he wore them every time he signed the divorce agreement. Today is my wedding anniversary with Gu Jingshan, and it's likely to be the last one. Everything started before this rebirth system began to operate. Jiangwan returned to the country. Gu Jingshan, regardless of our 7-year marriage, resolutely divorced me. I walked out of the house in a daze and was hit and killed by a truck speeding through the rain. When I opened my eyes again, I returned to before the divorce. I had liked Gu Jingshan since I was 17. This was the only thing I could do and the only thing I would never give up. Heaven was playing such a trick on me. Perhaps it was giving me a chance to make him truly love me. But, how can I save a man determined to divorce? I've tried almost all the methods I can think of. I updated a post, turned off the screen, and let out a deep breath. I walked into the kitchen, took out various ingredients that Gu Jingshan liked from the refrigerator, and had just put them in the sink when I stopped. I still remembered that I started making dinner at this time back then, but he didn't come home until the food was completely cold. Gu Jingshan had completely forgotten about the anniversary. At that time, I was really disappointed for a while. What's the point of doing these things as usual now? Just then, my phone rang with a notification. There was a new private message in my mailbox. Assistant of Professor Jiang, have you considered consulting a professional? A professional. 3. I decided to give it a try. The counselor was an eloquent and intelligent-looking handsome guy, wearing a pair of refined thin-rimmed glasses. It was said that he had a doctorate in psychology and held a teaching position at a well-known university. To save this marriage, in the previous 7 failed attempts, I had tried almost everything. But he proposed the view of self-improvement, which I had never thought of. It was already pitch black outside. Without accident, Gu Jingshan would be home in 15 minutes and tell me that he was canceling the upcoming vacation plan. I knew the reason all too well. Jiangwan was going to return to the country. As for the anniversary candlelit dinner, I had ordered takeout from a star-rated hotel. It was already plated and looked perfect. The car lights illuminated the front yard, and the sound of a car driving into the garage came from downstairs. Gu Jingshan was home. I put on the most beautiful silk dress and sat at the candlelit dining table waiting for him, and my husband, who had no romantic cells, turned on the chandelier, loosened his tie with one hand, and asked coldly with his handsome face, "What are you doing? Today is our wedding anniversary." I propped my cheek with my hand and looked at him. He was looking for an excuse. Today I know. An emergency shareholders meeting. I was understanding. Gu Jingshan frowned and didn't speak. He took off his coat, washed his hands, and then sat across from me at the long dining table. We ate quietly at a distance. As expected, he didn't notice anything wrong. I pushed the cufflinks in the exquisite gift box towards him. "A gift for you." They were carved from obsidian and suited his temperament very well, of course. Gu Jingshan hadn't prepared a gift for me. I knew this very well. He lowered his eyes to look at the things in the box and thanked me. My husband was always cold, and it was impossible to tell where his heart lay. A long time ago, I thought he was like this by nature. Later, I found out that he was only like this towards me. "Tomorrow I'll ask my secretary to take you shopping." "No need, I have an appointment tomorrow." Gu Jingshan paused and looked up to examine me. This was very unusual. After all, since I married him, I had no social life outside the family. "One more thing," he continued, "the vacation is cancelled. I had excitedly planned this Roman holiday for a long time, Gu Jingshan, and I didn't have a honeymoon trip. In the 7 years of our marriage, this was the first time we were going to travel together. Just like truly loving partners. It doesn't matter. I don't need to refund my plane ticket." I cut a piece of steak and said, "I have an old friend in Rome. I'll just go and have a get-together." Sure enough, a look of surprise appeared between his brows. The numbers jumped. Success rate of saving the marriage, 36.5%. I was secretly surprised in my heart. Professor Zhang's consulting service was actually useful. The first step of self-improvement, learn to refuse. As for the second step, it was cheating. 4. Saying it was cheating didn't mean actually cheating. Although my lecturer said that it wouldn't be a bad idea to make a false show into a real one. Once your availability decreases, your charm will increase accordingly. The core of this step is to create a sense of urgent competition. After all, men are animals who love to chase. I took notes and casually asked, "Professor, can I ask you out to cheat tomorrow?" Professor Jiang smiled very gracefully on the screen. "It would be my pleasure." The next day, I didn't go home until late at night. I chose the bar that Gu Kongwen often went to as my cheating location. He liked his sister Jiang Wan. Since he was a child, he had decided that she was his sister-in-law and couldn't stand me the most. In the previous cycle, he even pushed me, who was pregnant, down from the second floor of the old house. If he found out that I was having a tryst with a man, he would definitely inform Gu Jingshan immediately. I took off my windbreaker and turned on the light. The light suddenly illuminated the figure sitting alone on the sofa. If I hadn't been prepared, I really could have been scared sick. Gu Jingshan looked at me and asked in a flat tone, "Do you know what time it is now?" 2 o'clock in the morning. I looked at my watch. "Where have you been?" There was an undercurrent surging in his tone. "At a bar." I said it with full confidence. "Come here." "Oh." He used an order tone. I carried out the order perfectly. I threw my bag aside and enthusiastically sat on his lap. Jing, Shin. I knew very well that I was carrying the smell of another man. Jiang Zhihui had good taste in this regard, the three-piece suit of an academic, the woody perfume of a gentle scum, and the thrilling contrast when he took off his glasses. Gu Jingshan also smelled it. He slightly turned his face away and looked at me coldly. "What did you do?" I put my arms around his neck, got closer, and lied without blinking. "It was just a high school class reunion, didn't I tell you?" In my social circle, no one knew about my marriage to Gu Jingshan. Back then, the family forcefully separated him from Jiang Wan. Jiang Wan didn't care at all and left chicly. He then married me, who had no background, out of revenge. My mother-in-law's compromise was, family scandals should not be made public. I was not allowed to claim my identity as the daughter-in-law of the Gu family outside. As for him himself, I was not a partner worthy of boasting. As a result, he naturally never showed up in front of my friends. They didn't know I was married and even introduced a boyfriend to me. I really couldn't so I had a couple of drinks with him. Gu Jingshan's brows twitched slightly, and displeasure was written on his face. Just as he was about to say something I laughed drunkenly, left a bright red lipstick mark on his cheek, and got up to leave. "I'm going to take a shower. You should go to bed early too." Success rate of saving the marriage, 41%. As soon as I entered the bathroom, Jiang Zhihui sent a message, "I'll pick you up on Sunday." 5. I had always been unconfident about my appearance. There were no shortage of beautiful faces around Gu Jingshan, not to mention how radiant that first love, Jiang Wan, was. In the 7 years since I married him, he had never expressed any appreciation for my appearance as if he had in other aspects. I examined my face. According to Professor Zhang's suggestion, I changed my hairstyle. My long hair was permed into soft curls. I also changed my daily dressing style. On Sunday, in front of the mirror in the fitting room, Jiang Zhihui stood behind me on the side, both of us gazing at the completely new woman in the mirror. He said that if my husband was still unmoved, I might as well turn to other options. "Sorry, Professor Jiang." I looked into his eyes and replied ruthlessly, "I'm not going to divorce. The two are not in conflict," the professor said. Behind the lenses, he blinked. Gu Jingshan was indeed a bottomless abyss of darkness. But if I fell into the hands of this fox, I would be eaten without even the bones left, being caught in a death loop. It's better not to create more trouble for myself. I gave him a fake smile. "I'll consider it," as if I had the life to consider. 6. Previously, Gu Jingshan simply ignored the changes in me. At that time, according to online tutorials, I bought a wardrobe full of marriageable-style clothes. Not only was I completely ignored by Gu Jingshan, but Gu Kongwen also said that I looked like a moving wedding arch. This time, things changed. I no longer sent him messages, no longer ironed his suits, no longer waited anxiously with a table full of food, no longer invited him to fulfill his husbandly duties, no longer obeyed him in every way and was overly cautious. He actually wanted to take me to a gathering of his childhood friends. In countless previous cycles, I could only stay at home alone or cook for them in the kitchen. This time, I was dressed up beautifully and stood side by side with him in front of the door. A well-known playboy among the friends looked me up and down, his eyes seemingly hooked, and said with a smile, "Sister-in-law is getting more and more beautiful." The hand he had around my waist suddenly tightened a bit. If it were the me from before, I don't know how overjoyed I would have been, but at this moment, I reflexively checked the system data. Success rate of saving the marriage, 47%. Very good, Jiang Zhihui. It was like I had been given a shot of a cardiac stimulant. During the following gathering, I exerted all my efforts to exude charm. Self-improvement was not just about superficially enhancing one's appearance. With the help of Professor Jiang, I crammed all kinds of knowledge about high society and Gu Jingshan's industry. I studied as hard as an examinee, often memorizing books until late at night. Naturally, I no longer had time to be his full-time maid as I used to. Hard work pays off. Finally, I was able to join in their conversations. Speaking of which, before marrying Gu Jingshan, I was actually a talkative person. I had even forgotten that myself. Amid the flattery and attentiveness of a group of wealthy young masters, Gu Jingshan drank casually while looking at me, his eyes very deep. 7. Only when I actually did it did I realize how easy it was to arouse a man's jealousy. Recently, the frequency of my meetings with Jiang Zhihui was getting higher and higher, not to mention the exchange of messages. It wasn't just about classes or things related to Gu Jingshan. More often, it was just chatting. He spoke with a faint sense of black humor, which I really liked. After reading the latest message, I couldn't help laughing and replied while tapping on the phone screen. Gu Jingshan put down his knife and fork, and the cutlery made a soft clinking sound. I didn't even notice when he got up and walked behind me. How could that be? Everything was within my plan. He propped one hand on the edge of the table and leaned down halfway, almost enveloping me in his arms. Who is it? Just a friend I met a few months ago, I said without changing my expression. Last time I had hypoglycemia on the side of the road, and he was kind enough to take me home. Friend, Gu Jingshan gently repeated the word. Was it him at the bar that day too? Yeah, why didn't you call me? I hesitated before answering. I did, you said you were busy. Gu Jingshan was silent for a moment. I shook the screen in front of him, with a little excitement in my tone. Jingshan, we made an appointment to go to the movies next week. It's that one you said you weren't interested in before. I'll go with you. I loved watching movies and had worked in the film industry before getting married, but Gu Jingshan always thought that watching movies was a waste of time. Maybe he would be willing to watch them with Jiang Wan. For the people we love, we always feel that we haven't wasted enough time. And now, the phone vibrated, and Professor Jiang sent another message. Same place again. Gu Jingshan took the phone from my hand, looked at me with deep eyes, and sent a voice message expressionlessly. I'm Xin Zhaoyi's husband. There's no need to contact her anymore. He deleted and blocked the contact in one go. I stared at him with wide eyes. Jealousy and possessiveness were important components of love. Could it be that Gu Jingshan was really about to fall in love with me? The stock market was falling all the way, but the success rate of saving my marriage climbed to a new high in history, 67%. The day when Jiang Wan returned to the country was finally approaching. 8. The thing about Rome was just a lie. How could I have friends in Italy? Even if I did, I wouldn't miss this most important time point. Before, I had tried various ways to stop Gu Jingshan from going to pick up Jiang Wan at the airport. For example, begging, going crazy, faking illness, puncturing the car tires, and even deliberately breaking my own arm. None of them worked. This time, I would face it head on. Now I was no longer the Xin Zhaoyi who only knew how to endure. I hired a professional styling team and put on the most expensive high-end custom-made suit. The person in the mirror was polished to perfection. Even the stylist couldn't stop praising. Miss Xin is just like a female celebrity. Since I was like a female celebrity, I would go with the mentality of outshining others. I took Gu Jingshan's arm and stood at the airport pick-up gate, with my neck straight, as if I were under the curtain of an award-giving ceremony. My handsome co-star looked down at me and tucked the curly hair beside my ear behind it. 67.5%. My confidence had never been so high, nor had my heart rate. From a distance, I saw Jiang Wan at a glance. She was tall and very conspicuous in the crowd. Her experience of living in the Americas had made her cut her hair short, and her skin had also darkened a few shades. Her image was almost unkempt. She had no makeup on, dressed extremely simply, and the lines of her arms exposed outside the white t-shirt were tight, with obvious signs of exercise. After 7 years, she was completely different from how she was in college. Gu Jingshan least liked this type of woman. He had always liked women who were delicate, charming, mature, and feminine, like Jiang Wan 7 years ago. And like me, Jiang Wan was getting closer and closer, and her eyes were very bright. At a certain moment, I felt that she was an approaching comet. For some inexplicable reason, static electricity kicked in, and the hairs on my body stood up. She walked towards us. The words of the system appeared in front of my eyes. Success rate of saving the marriage. I stared fixedly at that line of numbers, and my heartbeat was deafening. Change, quickly, prove my success, change quickly. The numbers trembled and changed violently, leaving afterimages as if there was a system malfunction. After what seemed like a century, it was finally readable again. 33.5%. Wait a minute, there must be something wrong with the system. My face turned pale, and in an instant, cold sweat seeped through my temples. The makeup powder congealed and flowed down like lead-colored blood. Gu Jingshan stared fixedly at Jiang Wan. It seemed that nothing could make him look away anymore. My numbers jumped again. 3.5%. It turned out that just one look at her was enough for me to face complete failure. 9. I opened my eyes. Defeat was like a mountain collapsing. This time was not very different from before, except that the way it ended was much gentler. There was no entanglement, no miscarriage, no hysterical farce. Gu Jingshan was a generous husband and naturally a generous ex-husband. We could be said to have a peaceful breakup. After all, I had been completely devastated by the blow. If it weren't for the extremely bloody death CG, I would even feel that this was an acceptable ending. Yes, I could accept divorce. Loving Gu Jingshan was the only thing I had been able to do so far, but it was no longer something I would never give up. Because Sisyphus Boulder had already broken my hands, I slowly got up from the bed. Death seemed to have brought some kind of change. I felt a tired black hole appear deep within my body. I picked up my phone. As soon as I opened the social platform, I saw a middle-aged woman kindly imparting marital wisdom to the camera. Sometimes the problem doesn't lie with your loved one or the third party, but with yourself. I couldn't help laughing. What nonsense. In one of the previous cycles, I had even bought her courses. If the problem was with me, my smile suddenly froze. The problem, indeed, lay with myself. Because I had completely misunderstood one thing, Gu Jingshan was doomed not to love me. 10. In the previous 8 cycles, I had been going around in circles, hitting the iceberg, and sinking the ship on the wrong route. If I had to say, among all the bad ideas I had adopted, the worst one was being Jiang Wan's stand-in. There was no more imitation show than that. I searched for all the information related to her, hired a private detective to investigate her privacy, and even watched the videos of her that Gu Jingshan treasured over and over again. She was a well-known musical genius. I had also learned the piano for a few years, so I practiced hard the piece she played on stage when she first met Gu Jingshan, until my fingertips became calloused. I realized the gap between people. The piano teacher praised me a lot, but I knew in my heart that I couldn't even reach 1% of her standard. When she talked, her eyes always stared at people intently, shining like stars. I practiced my gaze hard, even signing up for several acting training classes until Gu Jingshan would be in a daze when looking into my eyes. She was tall with a very beautiful waistline and had been scouted to be a model. 7 years later, even without any makeup, she still stood out from the crowd, since my natural conditions couldn't be changed. I secretly went to a private hospital to have my ribs removed while Gu Jingshan was abroad attending business activities for several months, making my waist a full circle thinner. When the stitches were removed, I looked at the blue-purple area on my ribs in the mirror. I thought I would cry, but my eyes just burned red. Your waist. On the night he returned from abroad, Gu Jingshan hugged me from behind and asked in a low voice, "Why has it become so much thinner?" At that moment, I suppressed the strong urge to retch for no reason. Needless to say, the ending of a fake was that I was smashed to pieces by the hammer on an antique appraisal show. I had thought about becoming Jiang Wan, but I had never thought of another possibility. There was clearly a correct solution to my marriage crisis. If he could only love Jiang Wan, then I would ruin Jiang Wan. 11. Jiang Wan was very friendly to me. Maybe she was like that to everyone. Gu Jingshan held a welcome-back dinner for her and booked the best French restaurant in the city. She didn't seem to have a good appetite and didn't eat much. When we were parting in front of the restaurant, her stomach rumbled embarrassingly twice, so I suggested that she come home with us, and I would cook some supper for her myself. Gu Jingshan, who was already reluctant to part, naturally couldn't wish for more. Jiang Wan hesitated for a moment, and under my calm and sincere gaze, she finally nodded. I cooked, and she insisted on helping. Rather, she was more of a hindrance. This woman was proficient in all kinds of arts, but she was extremely clumsy when it came to cooking. Coming from Suzhou and Hangzhou, she had a light taste, so I carefully washed the vegetables, scrambled the eggs, and cooked a bowl of fragrant water shield and whitebait soup. Jiang Wan stood very close to me. I could almost hear her swallowing saliva. My goodness, it smells so good. I haven't eaten this for 7 years. Just like that, she walked into my hangmen banquet without any precautions. I said lightly, "It's ready," and picked up the bowl. She happily reached out to take it. At the moment of handover, I deliberately let go of the bowl. The bowl suddenly overturned, and the steaming hot soup splashed over. Her hand immediately blistered red. This pain was nothing to someone who had died 8 times. So the cry of pain that escaped my mouth was completely acting. Jiangwan was startled, and Gu Jingshan also came over when he heard the sound. He quickly glanced at the messy floor and took my wrist to rinse it under the faucet. "I'm sorry," Jiangwan's voice sounded from behind, weak and lacking confidence. "I didn't hold it steady. Where's the first aid kit?" "No, I'd better call an ambulance." She was really making a big deal out of nothing. I held back my tears, raised my wet eyelashes, and looked at the silent Gu Jingshan. "It's okay." Miss Jiang didn't mean it. In the end, we still called an ambulance to deal with my burn, taking up medical resources. After Jiangwan left, I deliberately behaved very unnaturally. When going to bed, I even turned my back to Gu Jingshan, lying very far away from him, which was very unusual. "What's wrong?" he finally asked in a low voice. I didn't say anything, just made my shoulders tremble as if I were crying. "Tell me." So I sobbed realistically. Miss Jiang said this was a lesson for me. Gu Jingshan was silent. I then checked the system data. A quarter of an hour later, just when I thought he had fallen asleep, my success rate increased by 10 percentage points. 12. That day, Jiangwan added my contact information and forwarded nearly a dozen blog posts related to burns that night. A few days later, before I even had a chance to go to her, this stupid woman actually came to apologize on her own. She was carrying gift bags in both hands. After putting them down, she went to the car to get some more. It was really exaggerated. I casually inspected the gifts: burn ointment, scar removing gel, a beautiful atlas of geography, a bowl exactly the same as the one that was broken, and compared to them, rather rough-looking baked cookies. There was also a silk scarf. Jiangwan said that the dress I wore when picking up the plane was very beautiful. At that time, she was thinking that it would match such a pure white silk scarf very well. In the last box lay a simple, shaped wooden carving ornament. It was a souvenir made by the children themselves when she was volunteering in South America. I said gently, "I like them so much. I want to put them in the bedroom. But, these are too many. I just got a minor injury. You don't have to take it to heart. Today is also your birthday," Jiangwan said. After a pause, she added, "Actually, I saw you at this time last year." Last year, she saw me. I came back to deal with some things and only stayed for 2 days, so I didn't tell anyone. It was around 11:30 at night. I passed by that convenience store on the corner and saw you sitting alone in front of the glass, eating takoyaki. There was a cream cake in front of you, and there was also a birthday candle stuck in it. I originally wanted to knock on the glass and wish you a happy birthday, but I felt that you probably didn't want to be disturbed. I froze in place. It was a stormy night. Gu Jingshan said on the phone that he had to fly to Hong Kong temporarily. The convenience store clerk sold me the last expired cake. The cheap cream had collapsed into a mess. I ate the takoyaki, and my tears kept falling into the soup, because of the long death and rebirth in between. For me, even the dampness on my face that night was already a very long ago thing. I was silent for a long time until Jiangwan's eyes became worried. "Can Miss Jiang help me take this up?" I said. "This wooden carving." She looked down at my right hand wrapped in a bandage. Of course. 13. The steps of the old house creaked under our feet. Jiangwan, holding the wooden carving, walked in front of me. Her short hair swayed and brushed against the back of her neck. "Jiangwan," I called her. She turned around. "I'm sorry. I really meant it. I'm sorry." A somewhat puzzled expression froze on her face. I let go of the handrail and rolled down the stairs amidst Jiangwan's scream. In the dull thud of the back of my head hitting the floor, I vaguely heard Gu Jingshan's voice. "How long are you going to make up stories? Kongwen said that you fell by yourself." "Yes, I did have a miscarriage once. I was pushed downstairs and could only desperately and hopelessly protect my bulging belly. I was like a kicked down dog, lying on the ground, begging my husband's dear younger brother to call an ambulance. That time was real, but in Gu Jingshan's eyes, it was just a lie. I punctured the blood bag I had hidden in my pocket beforehand. In Jiangwan's disbelieving eyes, a pool of bright red blood slowly seeped out from under me. Gu Jingshan was at home today. Naturally, he didn't remember my birthday and was just having a video conference in the study, and this time, when he walked out of the room, he happened to see the lie I had carefully prepared for him. The victim was still standing dumbly at the top of the stairs, looking at me with a pale face. The wooden, carved bird in her arms had fallen to the ground and broken in half. At the end of the day, In his arms, I cried bitterly. The child, Jingshan, the child, 14, I had already bribed the doctor, and he would give Gu Jingshan a flawless miscarriage report. I was lying on the hospital bed, staring straight at the light green, painted ceiling of the hospital. Only the bruised forehead and leg bones were still aching faintly. Through the wall, there were faint sounds of an argument. I pulled out the indwelling needle in my left hand, got out of bed, and limped out of the room. The voices were Gu Jingshan and Jiang Wan. They were talking in the empty ward next door. Why did you treat her like this? I don't love her at all. Gu Jingshan's voice was suppressed with anger. I leaned against the cold wall. Surprisingly, I felt no waves in my heart about the fact that Gu Jingshan had said. Jiang Wan smiled softly. Have you ever trusted me even a little? There was a moment of silence in the room, and the door suddenly opened. Not surprisingly, it was Jiang Wan carrying a bag. Jiang Wan took a deep look at me. I looked back at her. Now, the urge to retch welled up in my throat again. Love means nothing to you, but Jiang Wan, without him, I will die. I will really die. Everything I did was just to survive. I was so disgusting. The nurse pushing the dressing change cart was walking towards us. Jiang Wan passed by her, and her figure disappeared at the end of the corridor. I thought I would never see her again in this life. But there was a sudden rush of footsteps behind me. It seemed that I wasn't the only one who realized this. Gu Jingshan chased after her. The corner of his clothes brought up a gust of wind. He pushed aside the dressing change cart blocking the way. The bottles and jars clanged, attracting a sharp rebuke from the nurse. He didn't see me, but I saw him clearly. On that face was an expression of blankness due to anxiety, an expression of wanting to save something, an expression I had never seen before. 15. I opened my eyes and touched my neck. It was intact. This system, fate, or whatever it was, had a great imagination for ways of death. So far, there had been no repetitions. But the track of the small ball rolling remained unchanged, diving towards the fated ending. I was invited to play this pinball machine that could never be won. Even if I was the completely innocent victim in the script, Gu Jingshan would break through the shackles of morality and run towards his beloved. If I end my life before the divorce, can I welcome eternal peace? I began to seriously think about this question. On the social platform, the kind-looking woman said, "A child is the crystallization of love and the bond of a family. With a child, a man will eventually return to your side. This is the power of life." The phone was lying beside me. This half-minute video was playing on loop. The fluorescence illuminated the dark ceiling, like a scene from a horror movie. Gu Jingshan was a fortress that I couldn't conquer. Pregnancy, miscarriage, and even suicide were all useless to him. The so-called power of life only Jiang Wan would dash. Wait. Only Jiang Wan would. 16. Let's go to Sangala. I held down Gu Jingshan's hand that was starting the car. I suddenly want to eat whitebait soup. Jiang Wan, who was fastening her seatbelt, paused for a moment. Gu Jingshan also glanced at me through the rear view mirror and slightly frowned. I've already made a reservation dash. I want to eat it too. Jiang Wan sounded very happy, just like that night. It's been 7 years since I last ate it, so he changed the route. At the dinner table, I listened silently to their chat, until I finished the last sweet soup, wiped the corner of my mouth, and then calmly announced, "Actually, I have something to tell you today." I took out the forged medical report from my bag, placed it on the table, and pushed it towards Gu Jingshan. "I have cancer." The porcelain spoon fell into the soup bowl, and the splashed juice spread on Jiang Wan's cuff. There was a moment of silence in the private room. Gu Jingshan flipped through the report, and his pupils trembled slightly. "It's in the late stage. The doctor said I have at most 2 years left." I smiled easily. "Anyway, I'm a dying person. I'll let you two be together." After saying that, I stood up. "I'm going out for some air." I waited outside for 10 minutes. When I came back, as expected, I heard the two of them arguing. Gu Jingshan said in a low voice, "I'll arrange the best medical team for her. You can't punish me with her condition, not just for this reason. Don't you understand yet? I didn't come back to get back together with you. Besides, you're incredibly cruel and selfish." My husband was silent. Jiang Wan's evaluation of him must have been a blow to his heart. The success rate of saving the marriage increased by 20%. I laughed coldly. It was a bit too easy. 17. As I had imagined, Jiang Wan didn't leave. Instead, she volunteered to stay and take care of me during my illness. I didn't have any illness at all. It was all a conspiracy with the doctor, the same doctor who forged the miscarriage report in the previous cycle. His name was Li Jin. He was a top student with a gentle and refined temperament. He looked more like a good person than that Professor Jiang. As soon as he saw Jiang Wan, who accompanied me for the re-examination, His eyes lit up. I knew what that signal meant. Sure enough, Li Jin started to pursue her relentlessly. Actually, I didn't think much of him, but from the way he looked, it seemed that he was sincere. After a few months of coming and going, Jiangwan actually started dating him. Gu Jingshan naturally also learned about this. He turned the page of the book calmly, but the corner of the page was crumpled. I lay down and pretended to be weak to brainwash him. I've never seen Miss Jiang smile so happily. As long as she can be happy. My husband was silent, lonely, and lovelorn on this night. I reached out from under the quilt, unceremoniously turned off the light, closed my eyes with my back to him, and a sweet smile hung on the corner of my mouth. After all, my success rate had just soared. 18. I held the straw and slowly stirred the fruit and vegetable juice in the cup. The green color was smeared on the cup wall, swirling into a shallow arc. The plan this time was just one word: delay. In other words, it was like boiling a frog in warm water. Once Gu Jingshan was cooked, he could no longer jump out of this pot. So far, everything was going smoothly. The success rate of saving the marriage in the system had reached Xinjiaoyi. Jiangwan propped her cheek and looked at me. You look at the upper left corner from time to time. I've been wondering, is there something there? My hand paused. The stirring straw scraped against the cup wall, making a slight sound, and my breathing also stopped. After 9 cycles, this was the first time someone had asked me this. Actually, I've always been a bit jealous of you. She suddenly smiled. This was simply a fantasy. You're very smart and very tough. Well, of course, you're also very gentle. Jiangwan said softly. You have all the things I don't have: smart, strong, gentle. She actually had such an idea. And your eyes can speak. Many times, I feel that you can understand what I'm thinking. She looked at me with those bright eyes. Do you know that? It's you who don't know, Jiangwan. You don't know what a selfish and sick person you're facing. A person who just wants to survive and thus resorts to any means, who can only monitor, calculate, and manipulate everything around her, and who can only take advantage of your kindness. A person who wants to live so much that she wants to die. I couldn't speak for a long time. And just at this moment, a familiar figure walked past the glass window, with a lover snuggling beside him. Jiangwan had her back to the window and couldn't see. I stared fixedly at that figure and suddenly stood up. Jiangwan, wait for me here. I'm going to the bathroom, Jiangwan said from behind. There's a bathroom in the store but I had already walked out quickly. 19. On the street. Li Jin's hand was on the girl's shoulder. The two were very close. As if there was only each other left in the world, I caught up with him and blocked their way. Li Jin, he was slightly stunned, then frowned, and his eyes dodged for a moment. Mrs. Gu, what a coincidence. Who is this? I motioned to the young girl beside him. If Jiangwan finds out. Li Jin sighed impatiently and said coldly, we've broken up. What? Broken up? Why didn't Jiangwan tell me? Why did she break up with you? He seemed to have heard a ridiculous question and sneered. Jiangwan has congenital heart disease. She actually told me so late. What if it affects childbearing in the future? My family has had only one son for 3 generations. Slapdash. There was a crisp sound. My palm hit his face hard. I was so angry that my voice trembled. Who do you think you are? How dare you treat her like this? He was slapped and turned his head, glaring at me with a mixture of shock and anger, covering his face. I coldly turned to the girl who was so frightened that her face turned pale. Did you hear that? If you're still a woman, dump him. Then I clenched my still slightly trembling and numb palm and turned around without looking back and left. When I returned to the coffee shop, Jiangwan was holding a mug, sipping hot cocoa, and there was a circle on her upper lip. There was a beautiful booklet on the table. You were gone for a long time. Actually, there's a bathroom in the store. She pointed to the pictures of the scenic spots in the brochure and smiled. Do you want to go hiking tomorrow? Didn't Li Jin say last time that you need more exercise? Of course, if you're tired, I'll approve taking the cable car. I looked at her and slowly understood. She didn't want to affect my remaining happiness, my marriage that had brought happiness to no one. 27 years ago, when I was still in love with Gu Jingshan, there were a lot of obstacles. Jiangwan mentioned him in front of me for the first time as we walked up the long mountain path. This topic should have been a forbidden zone for us, like the flood blocked by an artificial dam. Although we couldn't see it, we knew clearly that it was waiting to destroy everything. And now the embankment was loosening, and a trickle of water was flowing out. We agreed to elope abroad, but on that day, he didn't show up. I couldn't contact him and thought there was some accident. So I went to the Americas first to wait. It wasn't until I heard about his wedding that I realized I was dumped. My pupils trembled slightly. I didn't know that the original version of the story was like this, In my imagination, Jiangwan was the one who proposed to break up, went overseas, and left everything behind. Jiangwan continued calmly, at that time, I left everything and came to a foreign country, only to face such an ending. I thought about cutting my wrists and secretly hated you, whom I had never met. Later, perhaps because I was afraid of death, I survived and found that I was living very well, better than before. Finally, I couldn't help but think about you. I wondered what kind of person Gu Jingshan's wife would be. Was she okay? My legs seemed to be filled with heavy lead water. I walked slower and slower until I stopped. Jiangwan walked up 2 steps, realizing that I wasn't following. She turned around and reached out her hand to me. Tired? Come on, I'll pull you. I held her hand. Her palm was warm and dry. I always eat dinner alone, I said abruptly. Really? Her voice had a slight smile. So do I. I watched Roman Holiday 3 times in one day. Yeah, last summer. I drove around the coastline all night. There was only one song playing on the radio. I bought a pair of studded boots and never wore them once. Mine was a knitted short sleeve. I could never find the right season for it. I couldn't help laughing. Then I noticed that something in my heart suddenly fell gently with a thud. And then I finally could admit that when I was in love with him, he and I were so far apart from each other. I shook Jiangwan's hand. Like 2 high school girls, my steps gradually became lighter. I bought an online course on how to save a marriage. Save a marriage? Yeah. I took out my phone and searched for it to show her. This person suggested that I be a submissive and virtuous wife. Listen to what she said. Jiangwan clicked in and watched a few videos, then turned it off, holding back a laugh. Absurd, right? I also consulted a psychology professor. I searched for Jiang Zhihui's assistant again, but his account was nowhere to be found. Did I remember the ID wrong? Or was it a deviation caused by some kind of butterfly effect? It didn't matter anymore. I put this matter out of my mind. 21. When we reached the top of the mountain, the sun had already set below the horizon. Jiangwan's smile was very dim in the night. Happy birthday, Shinjiaoi. She took out a cake in a thermal box, a bottle of sparkling water tied with a beautiful ribbon, and 2 wine glasses. These were actually the things in the heavy backpack. I asked Li Jin, you can eat this. But no wine, let's use sparkling water instead. Actually, it's almost the same, right? I took off my scarf and put it on the cold stone, ready to use it as our picnic cloth, but a gust of wind blew it away. The navy blue scarf floated towards the purple night. Jiangwan leaned on the railing and reached out to grab it. Suddenly, the wooden railing collapsed, and her whole body tilted towards the boundless night. At this moment, the system data that popped up occupied my entire field of vision. Success rate of saving the marriage, 99%. A series of blood red exclamation marks. Jiangwan, the perfect Jiangwan, the Jiangwan who had overshadowed my marriage like a shadow, the Jiangwan who I could never defeat no matter what. If she died I grabbed her. The mountain wind howled, stinging my cheeks so painfully that I couldn't open my eyes. I could only hold her hand tightly, hold it firmly, and never let go. My eardrums throbbed, and my blood vessels were on the verge of bursting. I thought I was shouting, but in fact, nothing could come out of my choked throat. Using all my strength, I finally pulled her back. I staggered a few steps backward and slumped to the ground, gasping for breath. The taut string that had been stretched for a long time suddenly broke, and I couldn't help but burst into tears. Jiangwan hugged me and patted my back. I'm sorry, I'm okay, she said. So, she didn't understand anything at all. I heard the sobbing in her voice, and warm, sticky liquid flowed down into my collar. Tears? No, something was wrong. I held her shoulders and pulled her away. Jiangwan's face was deathly pale. Her head had been knocked open by a rock, and a steady stream of blood gushed out, staining her forehead and cheeks. Her sad eyes were like stars immersed in a blood mist. 22. Jiangwan was unconscious in the hospital, and I submitted a divorce agreement to Gu Jingshan. As long as I can start over, she won't really die, right? Love rival. This is the most incompatible relationship between women that ordinary people can think of. However, I don't want Jiangwan to die. I left the hospital and wandered the streets, waiting for my death. What kind of death would it be this time? Surprisingly, I no longer felt afraid. It was a bit of a surprise that it didn't end immediately. Early the next morning, before it was fully light, Li Jin called. Gu Jingshan had been looking for me all night, contacting major hospitals, hotels, transportation hubs, and even calling the police, which led to the exposure of the fact that I had faked a cancer report. He would definitely sign. I ate the birthday cake that Jiangwan had put in a thermos box, swallowing the cream in big mouthfuls. Sitting on the embankment, I watched the city slowly wake up in the rising sun. On the other side of the river was my school. Behind the glass building that shone brightly in the morning light was my old home that had been demolished. I recognized all the memories. Before falling in love with Gu Jingshan, before marrying Gu Jingshan, the trace of that me had become so faint that it was no longer visible. It turned out that Xin Zhaoyi had already died before entering the cycle. Why did heaven make me start over again and again? Perhaps because I made mistakes again and again. 23. I woke up again, April 20th, Wednesday, 15:10. I made a sumptuous dinner for myself, and the cufflinks were put up for sale in the second-hand market. Fetching a considerable amount, when Gu Jingshan came back, I had already gone to bed. In a half-asleep and half-awake state, he approached with the moisture from the shower, kissed me on the ear, and asked in a low voice, "Are you angry?" I opened my eyes and stared at him for a long time, his long, slender eyebrows, drooping, moist eyelashes, and eyes with a faint glimmer like obsidian, in his gradually puzzled expression. I smiled without any burden. None of this mattered anymore. Whether it was my marriage or the death that followed, this was not laziness or depression. On the contrary, I felt that every inch of my body was full of vitality, as if I had never lived before. In Jiang Zhihui's course, there was such a lecture. 10% of life is what happens to you, and the other 90% is your reaction to it. Then, this rebirth system where divorce means death has, in a sense, become immortality for me now. 24. Early the next morning, I contacted Song Rong, a former classmate and colleague. She still worked at M.W. Production Company and had been promoted to the position of Project Development Manager. I expressed my intention to return to the workplace to her. She was very pleasantly surprised and gave me an internal referral quota. It was settled just like that. I sent a text message to Gu Jingshan, briefly informing him of the situation. He didn't reply. At night, Kongwen and Mom will come to stay for a few days next month. Yeah. My eyes never left the screen, and the keyboard clattered as I prepared for the written test. Songwen's birthday, you make preparations in advance. Okay, don't make mistakes at the family dinner. I've already prepared the gift. You just say it's your thought at that time. Yeah, Xin Zhaoyi, what did I just say? I came back to my senses, like a middle school student being called by the teacher, blinking at him guiltily. Gu Jingshan sighed. I can't figure out the meaning of you going back. You don't need money, and you're not at an age to fool around anymore. I need money. I shrugged, and I'm immortal. This wasn't nonsense. How much do you need? He frowned slightly. I knew what he meant and just shook my head. I don't want yours, unless it's divorce alimony. It was a joke. I wouldn't live to receive the divorce alimony, but Gu Jingshan's face turned. And he had no sense of humor. 25. The written test and interview went smoothly. After 7 years, I returned to the workplace and did odd jobs under my former classmates. I felt very good. Even small things like ordering coffee were interesting to do. However, Song Rong seemed to be in some trouble. After several meetings, I understood that it was a problem with the script copyright. Copper Camel Lane was the swan song of playwright teacher Yutsen. Many film companies were fighting over it. During this period, the threshold of her house had probably been trampled flat. The good news was that the copyright hadn't been sold to any company yet. The bad news was that M.W. had also been firmly rejected by teacher Yutsen. She said that today's young people lack attitude. Aren't we respectful enough? Do we have to kneel on the ground and beg her? The male screenwriter in charge of following up was very resentful. Can I try? I raised my hand. Teacher Yutsen was very difficult to deal with. The degree of difficulty was as high as her talent. I stayed up all night to read her swan song and was completely in awe. Copper Camel Lane told the story of a middle-aged woman struggling in the times, gradually losing her marriage, job, and friendship. The ending was that after a fatal betrayal, she held back her tears, raised her head, and walked towards the next battlefield alone and firmly. The rough, tough, and morally imperfect image of the protagonist had been lingering in my mind since that day. It took more than 5 hours to drive to and from the company and the teacher's hometown. As soon as teacher Yutsen heard my intention, she pulled a long face and refused to see me. I carried through the docility I had learned in marriage to the end and visited her unshakably. Finally, after being shut out for half a month, when she saw my face again, she snorted and turned around to go in, but the door wasn't closed, leaving a crack. There was a glimmer of hope behind the crack. Cold looks, it didn't matter. I had a thick skin. Sarcasm was even easier. When she asked me to take out the trash, I even cleaned the trash can spotlessly, while being docile. I couldn't forget to improve myself. She liked watching ball games, so I made up for the videos and memorized the knowledge points hard. When she was watching the program, I casually commented a few words and received the look of "this little girl is actually a bosom friend." Another half-month later, our relationship had developed to the point where she invited me to watch the game with her. 26. It was already late at night. Song Rong opened a canned coffee and looked at me, who had just returned to the company and was half dead with exhaustion, half jokingly, "With your perseverance, you'll succeed in anything." She didn't know that compared to everything I had experienced with Gu Jingshan, these were nothing. "Only this ending isn't good." The male screenwriter sipped his tea and patted the script. "It would be better to change it to making up with friends and making a comeback in career, at least remarrying the ex-husband. The current version is too negative. I think it may be because teacher Yutsun has never married in her life. Change it to a happy ending." My eyebrows twitched. Although it was a safer plan, wouldn't it completely dissolve the soul of the original work? That's why today's cultural and art practitioners, suddenly, I understood the attitude problem that teacher Yutsun mentioned. I grabbed my bag. "Sister Lu, I'm going back first." I left their confused voices behind and rushed home in a hurry, rolled up my sleeves, and made some side dishes for drinking. Gu Jingshan leaned over from behind. This was a bit abnormal. Before, when I was busy in the kitchen, he never cared about what I was doing. "Why did you suddenly think of making this?" I put the lid on and put it in the refrigerator. "Of course it's because someone wants to eat it." "Yeah, when did I say that?" He sounded in a good mood. I was surprised. "I didn't say it was you." He left with a face again. I really couldn't figure him out. Fortunately, these were no longer things I needed to care about. 27. When I went to the appointment the next day, I took out the lunch boxes from my bag and opened the lids one by one. Teacher Yutsun watched from the side and swallowed quietly. "It's really rare for a little girl to be able to cook these." I smiled and said, "My husband likes to eat them very much. He never says it. But I know that every time I make them, he will drink a few more cups." The teacher snorted. I set the chopsticks, filled the wine, and turned on the TV. The ball game would start in a few minutes. "I had 2 miscarriages for him," I said casually. "One was when I was pushed down the stairs by his younger brother, and the other was faked." Without looking, I knew what expression would be on the teacher's face. To avoid divorcing him, I did even more terrible things. Now I think that what I'm afraid of is not the disappearance of love, or even facing my own defeat. What I'm afraid of is an imperfect ending. "Teacher, I'm scared to death." Now I finally know that what's really important is the right to choose an imperfect ending for myself. "I understand what you were thinking when you wrote the last scene. Since you've lost everything, don't look back and keep fighting." "So, teacher Yutsun, I promise." I looked directly into her eyes. "As long as I'm in M.W., the ending of Copper Camel Lane won't be changed." The ball game had already started on the TV, but teacher Yutsun didn't look away. Her lightning-sharp eyes also looked directly at me. Accompanied by the passionate voice of the commentator in the background, she nodded solemnly. When I got home and was washing the completely empty lunch boxes, I was still humming happily. The good mood lasted until late at night. Gu Jingshan turned off the lights and leaned over with one hand propping on the pillow. His hot breath sprayed on the side of my neck. I refused a couple of times, but he was persistent, so I used all my strength and unceremoniously pushed him away. "It's very late. I have to get up early tomorrow." The charming atmosphere disappeared completely. He asked coldly, "Are you full outside? Think whatever you want." I sighed and picked up the pillow. "I'll sleep downstairs." 28. Teacher Yutsun. I'm going back to the meeting. Today's meeting was very important. It would decide whether the senior management of M.W. agreed to use the original plot without any changes. "What are you going to do?" Teacher Yutsun turned a page of the newspaper. "I'm going to threaten them with my life." Although I said so, in fact, I had run around in many ways, staying up countless nights, analyzing the market, interviewing many professors, playwrights, and film critics, and writing a thick stack of reports from the perspectives of literary value, social value, and commercial value. Today's young people, really. She took off her reading glasses and rubbed her forehead with a headache. I looked at her eagerly. "This is the advantage of being young. You can still bet your life." Wait for my good news. Halfway through driving, I remembered that the USB drive with the interview videos was left at home, so I had to go back to get it. As soon as I entered the door, everyone looked at me in surprise. In the huge living room, there were well-dressed people and the sound of wine glasses clinking. Obviously, a family dinner was being held. I looked down at myself. To drive a long distance, I was wearing loose casual clothes, and the tip of my shoes was still stained with the mud from the teacher's yard. everyone enjoy your meal and drinks. I looked up and greeted everyone with a bright smile. I remembered, today was Gu Songwen's birthday party. Gu Jingshan had asked me to come back early in the morning, but I didn't take it to heart at all. Before, no matter how perfect I behaved, Gu Kongwen would always find fault. With such a big oversight this time, he definitely wouldn't let it go. At the wedding 7 years ago, when I was toasting, I accidentally knocked over the wine glass and soiled my dress, which made him and his cronies laugh at me in public. Unable to bear Gu Jingshan's contemptuous gaze, I sat alone in a secluded corner and cried. At that time, a strange man put his coat on me. I felt so ashamed that I just buried my face in my hands. Later, when I wanted to thank him, I didn't know his name or what he looked like. I looked around at those cold and mocking eyes. Anyway, it definitely wouldn't be a Gu family member. Sister-in-law, you're really a busy person. Do you still have the Gu family in your eyes? Gu Kongwen smiled with a hint of mockery. For people like Gu Kongwen, sometimes unconventional means had to be used. I smiled at him. Kongwen, sister-in-law has reserved a table for you at the bar. She's also ordered several of your favorite male models. You just report sister-in-law's name when you go later. He was stunned, and my mother-in-law turned pale with anger. The noble relatives of the Gu family were whispering to each other. Where was the look of a celebrity? Gu Jingshan stood far above on the steps, and his expression was indistinguishable. I waved my hand smartly. Bye, I'm going to work. 29. With my unremitting persistence and the strong support of Lu Rong and several seniors, after weighing for several hours, the senior management finally passed the plan. Lu Rong suggested having a celebration drink, but I thought it was better not to open champagne halfway through. After all, Teacher Yutsen hadn't officially signed the contract yet. Joey. Why are you still so steady? Lu Rong wailed. I just smiled. When I got home and took a hot bath, I waited for Gu Jingshan to get furious about what happened during the day. After coming out of the bathroom, I saw him sitting quietly on the edge of the bed, with no trace of anger on his face. Gu Jingshan pushed a black box with a silver border in front of me. I opened it and saw that it was a dazzling diamond necklace. It seemed to be from the same designer as our wedding rings, for me. I pointed at myself. He nodded slightly. Thank you. Although I was a bit surprised, my reaction was still calm. Actually, I don't have many occasions to wear it, and besides, the occasions where I could wear it are really quite dull. On this year's wedding anniversary, his gaze fell to the side, and he suddenly brought up this matter that I had long forgotten. I forgot about it. I've often neglected you in daily life. If you've been unhappy because of this during this period, I can. I interrupted him. Not at all. He paused and looked up at me, as if he was meeting me for the first time. Gu Jingshan, just be yourself, I said to him sincerely. Similarly, I'll just be myself. Our marriage is just like that, isn't it? 30. On the day I visited my teacher with the cooperation plan, at her home, I met an acquaintance I hadn't expected to see, Jiang Zhihui. He was sitting alone by the tea table, wearing thin-rimmed glasses, still looking like a gentle scoundrel. He and I nodded politely at each other. According to him, the teacher had gone upstairs to look for a set of treasured tea sets. I let out an and then there was a long period of silence. Has Teacher Yutsen found it? Why is it taking so long? After struggling for a long time, I finally couldn't help asking, do you have a side job online? Jiang Zhihui raised his eyebrows. I immediately realized that my question was strange and quickly apologized. I'm sorry, I didn't mean that. It's really hard to find. It must have been 10 years ago, a gift you gave me when you were studying. The teacher's voice came from behind. Little Shen, do you two know each other? No, we don't. The teacher leaned against the door frame and gasped for a while, then commanded, you two, don't just sit there idle, go up to the attic and look for it for me. Zhihui, you used to love reading up there, maybe you left it there. The attic hadn't been stepped on for a long time, and there was a lot of dust. While Jiang Zhihui was looking for the tea sets, I covered my nose and looked around. It was an ordinary attic, but this beautiful round window somehow looked very familiar. I took out my phone and opened a certain social platform. In the fan list, there was a zombie fan who had been there for many years and would like each of my posts one by one. The profile picture was exactly this window. The pixel of the photo was blurry, and it seemed to have been taken at least 10 years ago. I had an impression of it because of the beautiful carvings on the window frame. I was greatly shocked. Everything was connected. What's going on with Jiang Zhihui? Over the years, he had seen all the random words and thoughts I posted on my account. In that case, the Professor Zhang's marriage repair consultation at that time, wasn't it? 31. Found it. Jiang Zhihui took out a set of well-packaged tea sets from the box and smiled gently. Let's go down. The teacher must be getting impatient. The three of us sat around and slowly sipped tea with that set of pottery. She had no children, and the closest relative she had was this nephew. I kept stealing glances at him, thinking of all the highfalutin talks and secret thoughts I had posted. I was so embarrassed that I wanted to leave immediately. However, there was still serious business to attend to now. The meeting went very smoothly. I got straight to the point. I didn't even have to use the trick of threatening with my life, and the company agreed. Teacher Yutsun, are you willing to hand over Tongtua Alley to us now? Teacher Yutsun pursed her lips and didn't speak. I knew her attitude had softened, and it was just one last push away. Actually, there's one more thing I want to tell you. Teacher, I won't come again tomorrow. This was also the tactic of playing hard to get that Jiang Zhihui had taught me, holding the teacup. She looked at me in surprise from above her slightly fogged reading glasses. M.W. is considering transferring a more experienced senior to take over this matter. I also think that I shouldn't continue to bother you, whether you sell the copyright to M.W. in the end or not. I want to say that I really like this story. Thank you for writing it. I lowered my head to the teacher and tried my best to hold back my sadness. Well, then I'll take my leave first. I got up and walked towards the door. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps. Wait a minute. Teacher Yutsun's somewhat annoyed voice sounded behind me. I didn't say I wasn't willing. I stopped in triumph, turned around, and there was a sly smile on my face. Teacher Yutsun angrily read the cooperation plan I had taken out several times. Jiang Zhihui looked at me with great interest. His gaze was so prominent that I couldn't ignore it even if I wanted to. The teacher frowned. As a well-known senior with a bad temper, she had been outwitted by a junior like me. She was a bit annoyed and vented all her anger on Jiang Zhihui. Boy, you wanted to see her, and now you've seen her. Hurry up and leave. After that, she waved us away, wanted to see me. I walked out of the yard with Jiang Zhihui, full of doubts. In the late summer, the hibiscus flowers in the courtyard hung heavily on the treetops, and a few of them fell rustlingly, pure white and light purple. 7 years ago, I was also present as a guest at Miss Shin's wedding. Your dress was splashed with wine, and I took off my coat to shield you. You probably don't remember it. He tilted the sunshade umbrella towards me, his face half hidden in the shadow of the sun, smiling harmlessly. I will negotiate with your company as the teacher's agent. Please take care of me in the future. 32. The copyright contract was officially signed soon, and everything was carried out in full swing. As an agent, Jiang Zhihui was really pleasant to cooperate with. Time flew by, and in the blink of an eye, it was autumn. When looking through the calendar, I realized that today was the day Jiang Wan returned to the country. Gu Jingshan asked me to go with him to pick her up, but I refused. I don't want to disrupt Jiang Wan's life again. She is a really good person. The end of this cycle came the following year, when Gu Jingshan put the divorce agreement in front of me. I suddenly realized that this was the longest I had survived in countless cycles. Moreover, I hadn't checked the success rate data of the system for a long time. Presumably, it had already returned to 0. I held the pen and hesitated for a moment, but Gu Jingshan sighed, reached out, and held the hand that was holding the pen. He said, Joey, I gently but firmly broke free from his grip. The tip of the pen landed on the paper, and I neatly signed the 3 characters Shinjiaoi. It was as smooth as if I had signed it 1,000 times. I'm just sorry that I won't be able to see the day when the movie starts shooting with my own eyes. Gu Jingshan's jaw moved slightly, his masseter muscles tensed up, and his face was very gloomy. I put down the pen, leaned back, and waited for the omen of death. Gu Jingshan, I said at last, I think I understand. What? This system, all of this. I smiled. It's not punishing my failure, but punishing my compliance. 33. I opened my eyes. In the restaurant, soft music was flowing slowly, surrounded by flowers. Everything seemed to be enveloped in a faint halo, like a dream. I rarely came to places like this with Gu Jingshan, except for the time when he proposed to me. Later, I found out that this was the place where he had originally planned to propose to Jiang Wan. Actually, Jiang Wan doesn't like such a restaurant at all, and neither do I. I was lost in thought for a moment, then retracted my gaze and took a closer look. On the dining table was a small red velvet box, opened towards me like a clam shell, and the diamond on the ring sparkled with a cold brilliance. My breath caught for a moment. I tried to call up the system, but there was no response from the system. There was no longer any success rate of saving the marriage. Gu Jingshan looked at the wine list with a solemn expression, neither happy nor expectant. He knew that I would put on this ring ecstatically and shed tears of joy because my dream had come true. After all, I had been looking forward to becoming his wife more than anyone in the world. I reached out my hand. With a bang, I closed the lid. Gu Jingshan's eyebrows twitched. He raised his eyes and looked at me in shock. The violinist playing beside us played a wrong note, and the beautiful meditation piece was comically out of tune. My heart was beating like crazy. I grabbed my coat, winked at him, and my facial muscles were probably trembling. Then, as if urged by something, without saying a word, I turned around and ran. The street in April had just been washed by a rain, the crowd, the wet road after the rain, and the faint smell of grass in the air all collided with me at once. I ran past them, greedily looking and sniffing, in the exquisite shops along the street, on the staggered street lamps, and in the windows of the buildings in the distance. Little by little, the lights came on one after another. I kept running until my lungs were burning and my legs were sore. Finally, I collapsed on the side of the road, covering my face and trembling all over. The rainwater on the ground seeped through the thin fabric, and a real coolness came from my skin. Someone behind me caught up, panting. It sounded like the waitress who had chased me all the way. Your bag, she approached hesitantly. Are you crying? I raised my head from my palms and laughed so hard that I couldn't catch my breath. 34. 7 years later, a sharp pain burst in my heart without warning. I clutched the bedsheet tightly, my face pale, and pleaded incoherently, the child, for the sake of the child. I carried her for 5 months. Our child had already taken shape. Gu Kongwen pushed me down. I originally worried about running into Gu Jingshan here. When enemies meet, it's inevitable that there will be a confrontation, but strangely, I didn't even see his shadow. Jiangwan was still very conspicuous among the crowd of travelers, tall, wearing a white t-shirt, and with slightly tanned skin. Her gaze stayed on the pickup sign for a moment, and then she looked at me, frowning, obviously feeling strange. I didn't marry Gu Jingshan, so naturally, I had never cried in front of a cake at a convenience store late at night. At this moment, to her, I was a complete stranger. Who are you? Although I really don't want to bring this up, but, I shrugged. Gu Jingshan's ex-girlfriend. Jiangwan was stunned for a moment, and then burst into laughter. Xinjiaoyi, I've heard a lot about you. Only the good parts are true. I took one of her suitcases and walked side by side towards the exit. Please don't mention it again. This relationship left me with nothing but trauma. Really, I thought the trauma you left him was more serious, failing to propose in public. This matter has spread all over. You're the one. After breaking up with you, he was afraid of being reminded of the past and didn't dare to eat ginger for several years. Is that true? Spare me, Jiangwan. I want to invite you on behalf of M.W. to compose the music for the new film Tongtua Alley. Would you like to? Tongtua Alley. I've always wanted to write film music. How did you know that? Telepathy between ex-girlfriends. I turned my head, and Jiangwan also looked at me, her eyes shining brightly. We smiled at each other.